Good evening and welcome to tonight's Warren City Council meeting. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam President.
Mr. Bacamino?
Present.
Ms. Comartin?
Present.
Mr. Green?
Here.
Mr. Liss?
I'm here.
Mr. Sadowski?
Here.
Mr. Stevens?
Present.
Ms. Vogt?
I'm here.
Mr. Warner?
Here.
Camp present.
Adoption of the consent agenda. All 4 items.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Vogt, support by Ms. Comartin. Any discussion? Actually, I would like item 4C removed to the regular agenda. Any other discussion regarding the consent agenda? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
Next agenda item is adoption of the agenda.
So moved with discussion.
Motion by Mr. Liss. Support by Ms. Vogt. Discussion, Mr. Liss.
Madam Chair, on item number 19, council calendar of pending matters, I just want to, I know we usually go over that because we usually don't have any questions about the pending matters, but I have several questions about the pending matters.
So just acknowledge discussion on item 19?
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments regarding tonight's agenda? Allow Mr.
I'm sorry,
Sadowski
yes.
to clarify.
Actually, I do have a couple of clarifications. Mr. Warner has asked to have an item added to the agenda. That item will go under council business as 20A. And this is update on committee to explore the possibilities of purchasing redistricting software. Also, there's a couple of clarifications that I need to make. On item number 11, please add the language and consideration and adoption of an ordinance amending ordinance number 30, rezoning said property as stated, second reading, City of Warren petitioner. Item number 13.
I'm sorry. This is item number 11.
Item number 11.
Please add in consideration and adoption of an ordinance amending ordinance number 30, was it?
I just need to read this.
Oh, I'm sorry. You just needed it in the record.
Yeah, I just need to read it into the record. And then for item number 13, consideration and adoption of an ordinance amending zoning ordinance number 30, Appendix A, Article 4, Section 4.01A and B, compliance with all laws and Sections 23.02, fines, second reading. And then finally on 15, consideration and adoption of an ordinance amending zoning ordinance number 30, Appendix A, zoning, Section 2.7, 2.79, 2.8, definitions, and new articles 4.c, addressing state licensed child care facilities, second reading. So those I just need to add as I'm reading that, so. We will acknowledge discussion on number 19 for council pending matters, and Mrs. Vogt, or Mrs., or Madam President, your item will be 16D, as in dog, under correspondence from the mayor. That's 4C.
becomes 16D.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions regarding the agenda? Seeing or hearing none, I'll go ahead and call the question. Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
Item number 6, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of January 11th, 2011. Also, I'm sorry, Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of January 11th, 2011. These were tabled on February 8th, 2011, and regular meeting of February 8th, 2011.
Motion to remove from the table?
Support.
Motion by Ms. Comartin, support by Mr. Liss to remove from the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The minutes have been removed from the table.
Motion to approve?
Motion by Mr. Sadowski,
Support.
support by Mr. Liss. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Sadowski.
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Mrs. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
Make a motion to approve the regular minutes of February 8th, 2011.
Support?
Motion by Mr. Sadowski, support by Ms. Comartin. Any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Stevens?
on page 9 of the minutes, let me bring that up. Page 9 of the minutes, it states that, excuse me, halfway down, Councilman Warner asked what vehicles would be purchased next year since the last year Ford would be offering the Crown Victoria. That was myself that made that instead of Mr. Warner.
So correct it from... Mr. Warner asked, and then I think you asked
Yeah, you asked
immediately
the
after.
same question.
Oh, okay, well, then that's not included in there, the question that I asked, so.
Okay.
Okay, halfway down, include Mr. Stevens' statement.
Mr. Stevens, did you want these tabled for that correction, or just a note made of that
Just a
correction?
note made is fine.
Any other corrections? Seeing or hearing none, I'll go ahead and call the question. Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
Item number 7, approval of the bills.
Need a motion?
So
to
moved.
support? Motion by Mr. Green?
Support.
Support by Mr. Liss. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, discussion?
Ms. Comartin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. Looking at check number 503614, page 5. That check was made out to Green Meadows. I don't know if we have anybody here for DPW. In the backup, there is very detailed display of the lawn cutting that we had, and it has it per property, but then as you go through, there is another bill in there that is for DPW optional work, and it says lawn cutting. That portion is for $1,251.83, but it's not broken down to what properties or what optional mowing DPW is doing with that. And then there is another bill in there for bed maintenance, and that is for City Hall. And out of this, that bill was $3,300 and it's like $50. It's kind of light. Just double checking on that one. I'm sorry, it's $3,850. And that one for City Hall, is that coming out of the DDA, since that's maintenance?
To answer your first question regarding the DPW optional work.
Yes.
I'll have to get you additional details on that because that's all the invoice says, so I can find out from Ben Neighbors what the additional work would be, so on that 1,200.
All right, just trying to find out if those are vacant properties
Sure.
or if we're, you know, what we're doing with the optional work.
Yeah. And then the second one is it pertains to the bed maintenance for City Hall. That was $3,850. And what we do with a lot of the DDA, if you remember just, I think it was last month when we paid the DDA bill, there's twice a year there's a lot of general fund dollars that get paid twice a year by the DDA, and so I'm going to imagine that this is going to be part of that, but I'll double check and make sure that it is.
Okay, in other words, very similar to what we're doing with building authority.
Correct.
With the maintenance for the retirement buildings, when we have those are coming off, and we're getting a separate administrative bill for that.
Right. Yep, exactly. This one first gets paid through the general fund, and then the general fund gets reimbursed.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. And I think that is all with that one. The second bill is check number 503625, page 8. And that one is for Mitchell 1. And the question I have on that one, we had a snowplow that was for a Silverado truck, and that one went to sanitation, and I was just curious if sanitation is also doing some of the snow removal, or, because I noticed we've been buying several of the plows.
That snow plows actually for a Weingart's bill.
Yeah.
That's the next one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I am on the wrong one.
The Mitchell invoice that you're referring to?
Yeah, the Mitchell invoice, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I spoke to Ben Neighbors on that one today, and basically what he had told me is that our software, that software to help monitor our fleet maintenance, and so that monitoring software's for all of DPW.
Okay, so that is for the whole, because I know they talked about the diagnostic equipment that they were going to get, and that was supposed to help us instead of having them sent out for diagnostic, and it was supposed to keep us more efficient.
That's right.
Okay. So that is the bill for the diagnostic
Right.
system itself?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I already explained to you about Weingart's, and that was check number 503399, page 16, and that was for $3,589.
Right.
That was in regards to the plow, and that was for a 2010 Chevy Silverado.
Right. And how that works is all of our departments have plows, like, so, as an example, the fire folks, they plow the snow out of their own, the 6 stations or whatever. And then also Parks and Rec have plows, and they plow it like, where we're where this building is. They do their plowing here, so that's no different than sanitation. They have a plow, and they plow out their parking lot, et cetera.
Okay, and you also said to me, and maybe you can verify this just before the meeting, we had a little discussion on this, and you talked about sanitation people also helping out with some of the snow removal.
Yeah.
Did you verify that?
I wasn't able to, but I will for you.
Okay, I'm just curious if any of the guys are working to help out with that, and they're cross-referencing or whatever on that one. And the last check was check number 503648, page 19. That was for ALS asphalt paving. This one, just a little thank you and something to note. This one came through the CDBG road paving projects, and we did Waltham and Weller Street. So just something for the residents, if we can use. I know a lot of the council people up here are concerned about some of our south end streets, and we're trying to get them to use any of the money they can to do a small portion, and this was something that was utilized for it, and they did use CDBG money to help out in some of the south streets. And that particular one was Waltham and Weller Street. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Any further comments on the list of bills?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Bacamino.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Malzik, and I'm trying to say that again. Is that how you
yep.
talk to you once a week, maybe twice a week, Malzik? I have to get that name in my head. Mr. Malzik. On page 3, check number, I want to say 503620 from your office for $43.35 for mileage.
Yes.
What is the mileage for, and how is that determined?
That mileage That mileage is for the, you know how we have the bids that get opened up here? That's for our purchasing department and all the miles that they go back and forth within the city. And again, that's 51 cents per mile.
Now, does the person driving that vehicle then, is that their own vehicle they're using, obviously?
That's right.
So they submit a receipt to your office for that?
Right.
And again, there's a form to fill out
Correct.
for all that. So that number, that bill will not stay the same every month, and it depends on how much mileage that person uses that vehicle during that
Correct.
given month.
Yep.
Okay. And just one more, on same page, I'm looking at, I think it's check 503458 for travel expense from the administrative unallocated expenses for $236.
Yes. Yep.
Now, is that a mileage thing, or is that airfare, or how come that one's so high?
Yeah, that one actually is a one-day seminar for the individual.
And so we're reimbursing them, and they pay it up front with their own credit card or something like that, and then we reimburse them?
That's pretty typical, yes.
That's what I thought. Okay,
Yep.
so they have, again, they submit their credit card receipt, and you guys then reimburse them.
That's correct.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you. I'm just trying to establish procedures.
Thank you.
Any further comments from council members? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
Item number 8, budget expenditure report.
Motion to receive and file.
Support.
Motion by Ms. Vogt, support by Mr. Liss. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The item is passed unanimously.
Next agenda item is number 10, a public hearing.
9, sorry.
I'm sorry, number 9, I skipped announcements.
Any announcements from council members this evening?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Warner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one quick thank you announcement to the Parks and Rec Department for doing another fine job at the Daddy-Daughter Dance. It was held this past Saturday and Sunday at the City Hall Atrium. Everyone had a great time. I'd like to thank Patrick Photography Studios for taking excellent pictures as well, and look forward to next year's event. Thank you.
Any other members of council with
Madam
announcements? Ms. Vogt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just an announcement, the redistricting committee met on February 11th at 10 a.m. and have decided residents or anyone who would like to may submit their plans or comments regarding the redistricting to the clerk's office. The comments must be received in the clerk's office by February 24th at 12 noon. Then the committee will meet again on February 25th, again at 10 o'clock in the morning. Unfortunately, are pleased to have this done in the evening when working people might be able to attend, because there were only 5 or 6 of us at that meeting on the 11th. I can't make the next 2 meetings, unfortunately, as much as I would really like to. But are pleased to have it done in the evening. It fell on deaf ears, so it's, again, those meetings will be held 10 o'clock in the morning, February 25th, and March 4th or 5th, Mr. Biernat?
March 4th.
March 4th will be the final unveiling of the plan. So anyone who is interested and can take off work at 10 o'clock in the morning, please, please attend and give your comments. Second, I would ask for a moment of silence. Ms. Frances DeNardis passed away this past week. Very, very fine lady, long-term resident, time resident of Warren, very active member of the Warren Centerline Senior Connection, and she will be very, very sadly missed.
A moment of silence for Frances DeNardis. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Sadowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to let everybody know, 14 Mile Road is closed between Van Dyke and Mound Road. Macomb County Road Commission closed that road because of a water main break. So just, it's supposed to be closed maybe at least until tomorrow. It's in both directions, so if you need to get anywhere down 14 Mile Road, it will be closed, and traffic will be diverted between Mound Road and Van Dyke. And also, I was notified by that through the Facebook account on TV Warn. TV Warn will send updates on various events. A lot of them are sporting events, but in this case, this was news to let us know that this road was closed. So if you do participate in Facebook, you can go ahead and like TV Warn, and they'll send you those updates. So thank you to TV Warn for that update. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. If I can just say that's a Detroit water main, not a City of Warren main.
That's correct.
Okay. Any other comments from council members? Mr. Bacamino?
Thank you, Madam President. I know in the Macomb Daily recently, I want to clarify some things. It was said that I gave a gift card for $25 to a senior dance for a raffle, and I want to thank Norb France out there because it was only $20. Now I've gotten phone calls saying that you know, they went out to dinner and things like that, and it wasn't 25, it was only 20, and next time I better give 25, and somebody said it. I don't think it was Norb, it might have been, who knows, Jim Perner or somebody. But the announcement I have to make is there is a dance tomorrow night at the senior atrium, and all citizens are welcome from the city or without the city, and I want to clarify a couple things. It is a nonprofit. I did, before I did a check with the city attorney, and it is a nonprofit organization, so contrary to the treasurer's comments in the paper as well that went out to the county, everything's on the up and up in that department. I do get a few phone calls from Chesterfield Township and Macomb Township asking if they could come, and certainly, even though, you know, I think that's part of our job as council people is to encourage people from outside the city to bring their revenues into the city, whether it's large corporations or individuals. It's a great venue. I'll be there tomorrow. I'm going to double up my gifts. I encourage everybody to come. All seniors, spend your money in Warren. Fill up your tanks of gas here. Stop by after your date. Get a cup of coffee. Never know. And come to Warren. The last thing I want to say, though, with this dance is it's unique because it is next to the police station. It's covered parking, so it's very safe. There's no snow or rain or slippery spots underneath there. It's well lighted. And you never have to go outside from the parking lot to the dance. So hopefully seniors listening will not be discouraged by our treasurer's comments and will also come out for themselves. And I would like to invite Miss Mosseri tomorrow night to show up. And if she does, I'll pay her way and offer a prize in her name. Thank you.
So are you giving away $40 in gift cards or 50?
You know, I'm going to give away 2 prizes next time, and you'll have to come to find out, Mr. Sadowski.
All right, very good.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council members?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Stevens?
just to expound upon what Mr. Bacamino said, it's $5. It's a 60-plus dance. It's a swing band, live band, and for that $5 you get dancing with the live band, pizza, soft drinks, chance to win door prizes, a 50-50 raffle, soft drinks, and coffee. So come on out, have a good time.
Okay. Any other announcements from council members? I have 2 brief ones. First of all, as many of you that are regular council watchers may realize, that Mr. Biernet has been sitting with us now. I believe this is his 3rd or 4th meeting, and I want to apologize for the oversight of not formally welcoming you to the Warren City Council. Appreciate the job that you're doing so far, and hope things are going well in your office for you. I'm sure it was a lot to absorb, and got busy running from day one. So, my 3rd meeting. 3rd meeting? Good. Well, you're welcome, and keep up the good work. In addition, unfortunately, I have a sad note to report, and I'd like to request a moment of silence for James Giftos. Many of you, I'm sure, are quite familiar with the National Coney Island brand. He was a very strong contributor to the community, did a lot of charity work, really believed in helping others, and I know his family will severely miss him. He still has 2 locations in the city of Warren, and he'll be remembered for his legacy, not only for the wonderful chili and hot dogs and that, but myself personally will choose to remember him for all the community and the charity work that he did. So I'd like to acknowledge a moment of silence for James Giftos. Thank you very much. Oh, you know what, Mr. Sadowski? I'm sorry, one last thing, if I can. I want to thank all the volunteers that came out to the warming center at St. Edmunds this past week. It's the rotating homeless shelter that go around to the local churches, so I'd like to thank St. Edmunds and all those that volunteered, whether it was food or provided blankets or whatever. I believe our highest count this week on one night was about 75. Towards the end of the week, it had dropped down to 61, which is an encouraging sign. We actually hope this is a service that we don't need, but we're grateful for those that are there to provide it for those that are in need. So if I can just give a quick note to those people and thank them very much, and also a good job to the Crime Commission for their part in providing a safety element and helping organize that as well.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Bacamino.
I'm a little shook up here because I just received news that the longest-serving mayor in Warren history died today.
Mr. Bates?
Ted Bates, it says here, was elected mayor for 7 terms, and of course, very good friends with his wife from the school board, and I'd just like to give a moment of silence, I believe, if this is
Absolutely.
news. I hope it's not even true, but the source is pretty good, so forgive me for being a little bit shooken up here.
No?
Our sympathies out there.
Definitely like to send our condolences to the Bates family and acknowledge a moment of silence for Mr. Ted Bates, and as we get more information, we'll be sure to announce that at our next meeting. Moment of silence for Ted Bates. Thank you. One last note, I just got information that Art Van is still open. So, so if you're traveling along 14 Mile and have a need to go to Art Van, they are still in operation at this moment.
They're selling canoes.
Yeah. Bring your paddle.
Couch and a TV.
Okay, we'll return to the regular agenda, item number 10.
Item number 10 is a public hearing. Appeal of determination of nuisance at 12375 Georgiana, vacant, dilapidated one-story house, asbestos exterior, rear addition, chain link fence, and miscellaneous debris, and consideration and adoption of a resolution.
Item number 10 is a public hearing. Anyone that would like to address this agenda item may do so at this time. Not seeing or hearing anyone, I'll close the public hearing and open this up for council action.
Motion to abate.
Some support.
Motion by Mr. Green, support by Mr. Stevens. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
Item number 11 is a public hearing. Recommendation received from the Planning Commission to rezone unzoned property to P Parking District, the easterly 15 feet of the property, and C2 General Business District balance of the property, located on the west side of Shaner Road, approximately 300 feet south of 13 Mile Road, 30837 Shaner Road, the south 200 feet of parcel ID number 13-11-229-050 in section 11, and consideration and adoption of an ordinance amending ordinance number 30, rezoning said property as stated, second reading, City of Warren petitioner.
Item number 11 is a public hearing. Anyone that would like to address this agenda item may do so at this time. Good evening.
Good evening. State for the record, Karen Springer, resident, 7520 Hudson Avenue. Because you speak in a language that most politicians or you guys understand, is it simply saying that you can do something about the property of rezoning?
Yes.
Yes. And what action do you plan to do?
I'll be happy to have the council members answer all your questions when I close the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to address agenda item number 11? Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Ron Worth, Planning Director, and I'm here giving just a short presentation. This item was brought to you at my request and Lynn Martin's request. It was found that this property ends up being unzoned. It's a rather unheard of type of thing in this city. Most property is zoned, but this particular piece ended up being unzoned. And that had to do with, as a result of a court order back in 1970. And the order itself, and I did get a call on this, but the order was through Judge Denowith, and it ordered the zoning ordinance of the City of Warren was void and unconstitutional. As it applied to this property in question, it was further ordered and educated that the City of Warren is hereby enjoined from enforcing said zoning ordinances against this property. Well, later as time went by, there were attempts to encourage the council to rezone the property. They chose not to in the past. In 1989, there was a question brought to the attorney's office, and Dave Dallenberg at that time, and I quote, indicated to Mr. Weckesser at that time, accordingly, you have no authority to impose any conditions for compliance of the zoning ordinance on this property until such time as the city pursues the rezoning that was recommended in that letter. And there were recommendations prior to, and that's what he refers to. But this particular property, it's located on Shaner Road, about 300 feet south of 13. It's the McDonald's. It is the south two-thirds of that McDonald's property. The north third of that property is zoned P parking district, the east 15 feet of it. The balance of the property is zoned C2 General Business District. And I am here representing the Planning Commission. They accepted the recommendation that it be rezoned, and I'll read the recommendation. It provides a little background. The following recommendation is made regarding the rezoning request for the property in question as described. It is recommended that the rezoning request for unzoned property to P Parking District, that is the east 15 feet, and C2 General Business District be approved. The planning staff researched the history of this area. The area at and near the major thoroughfare intersection of 13 and Shaner Roads is developed according to the city's comprehensive plan for commercial development. This particular area was zoned C2 General Business District, and likewise commercial businesses followed. The property in question abuts property with the original C2 General Business District and with a parking district, and both districts are to the north. It was mentioned in the history that Fiddlesticks Lounge and a small-sized McDonald's existed in the area prior to the lawsuit. The judge recognized the fact that the area should be zoned to a higher use than the residential district designated at the time. After the judgment, the property became developed for a C2 use as the McDonald's drive-through restaurant. The restaurant facility and its surrounding areas meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance for a C2 use. The rezoning would be a natural fit, creating no nonconformities. Upon rezoning, the building division would be able to regulate the site and address and improvement issues that the owner may have. So that's a little background. That's the recommendation. We feel it should be rezoned at this time, and then the building division can regulate it in a proper manner. So with that, I
Thank you very
provide
much.
the recommendation. You're welcome.
Anyone else care to address agenda item number 11 before I close the public hearing? Seeing or hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and open this up for council action.
Motion to approve with discussion, please, Madam
Support.
Chair.
Motion by Ms. Vogt, support by Mr. Stevens. Discussion, Ms. Vogt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Worth? Sorry to have you getting up and down. but just
all
real
right.
quick. It's not going to change anything there, just give it the zoning that's required.
It's going to look the same, it's going to feel the same. In common terms, yes, it's going to be exactly the same as it is.
So really, all we're doing is fixing something that probably should have been done a long time ago.
I agree, yes.
Okay, thank you. So, ma'am, there won't be any changes to the property. It's just brings it to the proper zoning. That's all.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Comartin.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'll stay.
Good evening, Mr. Worth. I know I called you in regards to what the judge's stipulations were, because I was just wanted to know what he said in there, since it was not included in our package. But it also said in here that the city pursues the rezoning that was recommended in that letter. And are they referring to the letter of the judge? Or what letter are they referring to?
No, they're referring to, there were two prior requests, one by Tom Landy, he was an assistant city attorney, and another by the city attorney, Tom Morocco, and both had made recommendations, and the recommendations referred to the zone
That we're addressing right now?
that fits the commercial use.
Okay.
And basically, what they were looking for and looked upon this as a housekeeping matter. It just took a little while to get here. That's all.
A long while. From what you said, when this went back to the 70s?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was quite a long time. The only other thing is you had on the, oh no, it's not on the recommendation. Never mind. Fine. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Any other comments from council members? Okay, seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Ms. Vogt.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. List?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Bachamino?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
Item number 12, is a public hearing. Recommendation received from the Planning Commission for a lot split and combination to lot split property located on the south side of 9 Mile Road, approximately 140 feet west of Van Dyke Avenue, the north 22.08 feet of lots 1379, 1380, 1381, 1384, 1385, 1386, 1387, and a portion of lots 1378, 1382, and 1383 of Piper's Van Dyke subdivision number 6, and combined with parcels A, which also includes lots 1355 through 1365 and lot 1377 of Piper's Van Dyke subdivision number 6. The remainder of lots 1378 through 1387 through and all of lots 1388, 1389 of Piper's Van Dyke subdivision number 6 will become parcel B. Parcels affected include 13-33-226-002, 13-33-226-003, 13-33-226-008 through 13-33-226-020, 13-33-226-030, 13-33-226-031, and 13-33-266-033 in Section 33, and consideration and adoption of a resolution approving said lot split ZCOM LLC, Dea Dicao petitioner. And no, I will not read that again.
Item number 12 is a public hearing. Anyone that would like to address this agenda item may do so at this time. Seeing or hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and open this up for council action.
Motion to approve with discussion?
Support.
Motion by Mr. Sadowski, support by Mr. Green. Discussion, Mr. Sadowski.
Mr. Worth? The question that I have, basically, through this long convoluted reading, where basically the city is claiming the parking lot as their property, and then the shopping center, the buildings itself, will be owned by ZCOM, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, the reason why this is so complicated is because before the lot was built upon, the city owned several houses that are now covered by the plaza.
Yes, that's correct. They owned several along Dodge Street, or Dodge Avenue, I should say.
And if I remember correctly from 4 years ago, or maybe it was 3 years ago, the reason why the city is going to maintain ownership of that parking lot is so that that parking lot can be used for parking for more than just that development. Is that correct?
Yes, that's exactly correct.
Okay.
It can serve that entire area, particularly Van Dyke and 9 Mile, the whole intersection area for that matter. You can park there and walk. And so it's to help with support parking.
And part of the problem, because I remember when Gina Cavalier and I talked about this, I think you and I spoke about it, one of the disadvantages to owning a business in that area is the fact that there is a lack of parking, and that street side parking had been taken away several years ago. And this was one of the ideas that the city had come up with in order to increase parking space down there and increase foot traffic in that area.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Comartin?
For a couple clarifications on this. One, this was a past PUD agreement, and my question is, nothing on here that is before us today has changed in the PUD agreement. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then my second question is, normally when council approves a PUD agreement, it is a detailed written agreement between the contractor and the city, and normally all those details we follow to a T. We don't deviate from that. So just out of curiosity, with the lot splits, why are those coming back to council if it's an agreed PUD agreement?
It's part of the agreement, but the lot split in itself is required by city council anytime that you split lots that are located in a subdivision. So that's why it requires an action of city council.
Okay, so for example, for Heritage Village, when we did that particular PUD agreement, there weren't any lot splits that had to come back to us for any additional clarifications over at Heritage. So that's why.
That's correct. There are no subdivisions in that area. So therefore, they were acreage parcel type splits, and those were handled administratively.
Okay, all right. My second question is, our family has had a past family business agreement with Mr. Dickow, so I'd like to have a motion to excuse me on this item.
Request by Ms. Comartin to be excused from item 12.
Motion to excuse.
Motion by Mr. Liss
Support.
and support by Mr. Stevens. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ms. Comartin's been excused from voting on item 12. Any other discussion regarding item 12? Mr. Worth, sorry.
Can't get away. Sure.
It says that this was before the planning, March 8th of 2010. What was the delay in getting here?
It had to do with getting plans together that were correct. We had a problem with the survey, and so it just took time for the petitioner to get those plans in order.
Okay, and then,
There were some discrepancies, unusual ones that have to do with surveying, frankly. And so we settled on a corrected plan and finally brought it forth.
okay, when you mention the plan specifically, are you talking about the corrections to the legal descriptions?
The legal descriptions and the plot plan itself that you received.
Okay, and we're fully comfortable with the legal descriptions as they're stated in here?
We finally are, yes.
Okay. Is Tifa required to carry an additional insurance policy, or is this being insured by the city itself?
I cannot answer that question. I certainly could find out for you, but can't answer that.
Okay, I was just curious who the insurance policy on the maintenance of that property, of the parking lot portion, was being held by.
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay, and I had one other question. You know what, that's okay. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Stevens?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Worth, in reading through here, it basically it's Tifa's property, but ZCOM is going to maintain it, perform the maintenance and everything else, and/or its contractors, but ultimately, Tifa's responsible for that property, is that correct?
It's Tifa and it's the city of Warren.
And the city of Warren would be on the hook for it.
Exactly.
And we don't know that the city is going to carry insurance. Is Mr. Dickow here?
He is here.
Is he carrying insurance on the property?
Well, perhaps he can answer that question for you.
If we could?
Good evening.
Did I pronounce your name right, sir?
Dia Dickow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir, are you maintaining liability insurance on that property?
Yes, I am.
So Tifa is not, you're maintaining the
Well, actually, I'm maintaining the insurance on the property, and also Tifa has insurance in addition to mine.
Okay, great. And the statement that I made, to the best of your knowledge, is that true? Is that you will perform all maintenance on the property, have it swept, or whatever needs to be done?
That is
But
correct.
ultimately, Tifa is responsible.
That is correct.
What about in 10 years when it needs to be resurfaced? Who would be responsible for that?
Well, 25% would be Tifa's, and 75% would be mine.
Okay?
And that's the same thing with the maintenance also. 25% would be
Just
Tifa's, and 75
split.
would be mine, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from council members? With that, I'll go ahead and call the question. Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
No.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Camp, no. The item passed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 2.
Item number 13, a public hearing recommendation received from the Planning Commission for amendment to Appendix A, zoning ordinance Article 4, Section 4.01A and B, compliance with all laws, and Sections 23.0 WCC022211, fines, consideration and adoption of an ordinance amending zoning ordinance number 30, Appendix A, Article 4, Section 4.01A and B, compliance with all laws, and Sections 23.02, fines. Second reading.
Item number 13 is a public hearing. Anyone that would like to address this agenda item may do so at this time. Are you coming up this way? Okay.
See anyone from the audience. My presentation may take a while if there is anyone from the audience that wanted to.
Okay. Anyone else from the audience? She has a rather lengthy presentation, so we don't want to hold anybody up that wants to comment. Okay, on the screen, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Nancy Cooper Green on behalf of the City Attorney's Office for the City of Warren. The proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance are presented to amend two sections, Section 4.01 of the zoning ordinance as well as Section 23.02. Section 4.01 deals with general provisions and 23.02 addresses penalties, and I've put 2302 up on the screen. The recommended amendment to Section 23.02 simply recognizes that some violations of the zoning ordinance may be designated a misdemeanor violation. Previously, all violations of the zoning ordinance were misdemeanor violations. Then in 1998, all zoning violations were declared civil infractions. Since that time, experience has taught us that some violations for effective enforcement should be misdemeanors rather than civil infraction. This proposed language merely acknowledges that some violations, it's authorizing language, it authorizes that some violations may be declared a misdemeanor penalty within the zoning ordinance, and it's recommended that the proposed amendment to 23.02 be adopted to authorize misdemeanor enforcement mechanisms for violations of the zoning ordinance. The proposed amendment to Section 4.01 clarifies that the use of buildings and land must comply with all applicable provisions of the Warren Code of Ordinances and state and federal laws. The last section of proposed amendment to Section 401A, as originally submitted, proposed language that read, "Uses not expressly permitted are prohibited." In reviewing this proposed language and preparing for this, I'm suggesting replacement of this language so that instead the last sentence would read, "Uses not expressly permitted within a specified zoning district are not permitted uses within that zoning district." I think the proposed revision is more precise and it's a clearer explanation of the application of the zoning ordinance. And so I'm asking that when this ordinance amendment, if adopted, that you please include the revised language and replace that last sentence of Section 4.01A to read, "Uses not expressly permitted within a specified zoning district are not permitted uses within that zoning district." This proposed language was submitted to City Council on February 16th, 2011, and it should be in front of you this evening. The proposed amendment also includes a new paragraph labeled subsection B, which would read as follows. "Uses for enterprises, businesses, facilities, or similar purposes that are unlawful according to any federal, state, or local law are prohibited. A violation of this provision shall be a misdemeanor, which upon conviction shall be punished by a fine not to exceed $500 or imprisonment for a term not to exceed 90 days, or both, plus court costs and other court-imposed sanctions." This language is consistent with the authority granted under the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act MCL 125.3207, which allows a local unit of government to prohibit the establishment of a land use that is unlawful. Some examples of the types of activities that the proposed amendment would apply to are such things as maintaining a house of prostitution in violation of state law, MCL 750.452, the use of a building, shed, room, or premise for dog fighting in violation of state law, MCL 750.49, racketeering in violation of the Federal RICO Act, 18 USCA 1961, or violations of the Federal Controlled Substances Act, Title II of the Comprehensive Drug Abuse Prevention and Control Act, 21 USC 801 at sequence, whereby the manufacture, distribution, or possession of a Schedule I controlled substance is unlawful for any use. The municipal authority to prohibit land uses for illegal occupations, facilities, enterprises, businesses is clearly authorized under the Michigan Constitution, Article 7, Section 22, the Michigan Home Rule Cities Act, Section 117.4I, and the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, 125.3207. A new sheet. The Michigan Zoning Enabling Act 125.3207 specifically authorizes a local unit of government to prohibit the establishment of a land use that is unlawful. Further, under the Home Rule Cities Act, it provides authorization to regulate trades and occupations, provided the regulations are not inconsistent with state or federal law, and to prohibit trades, occupations, and amusements that are detrimental to the health, morals, or welfare of the inhabitants of the city. The proposed amendment to Section 4.01B would apply to enterprises, businesses, facilities, and similar uses described as medical marijuana under the Initiated Law 1 of 2008. As you are aware, in 2008, the voters approved Initiated Law of 2008. This law is an exemption law. It does not legalize the possession, use, cultivation, manufacturing, or distribution of marijuana, or remove it from being a Schedule I controlled substance, which means that it is illegal for all purposes. Rather, it exempts certain persons who obtain a qualified patient or caregiver registry card from prosecution under state law if the possession and use of marijuana complies with all the requirements in the Act. Now, marijuana remains a Schedule I drug under both the state and federal Controlled Substances Act. That means it's illegal for all purposes. This conflict in the state law must be resolved by the courts and does remain unsettled. Proponents of the medical marijuana initiative have argued that possession, use, cultivation, and sales are legal under Michigan law. However, the initiated law does not declare the possession, use, cultivation, or sale legal. Rather, it states that persons who possess or use marijuana in conformity with the provisions of the initiated law cannot be prosecuted under state law. Therefore, the possession and use remain illegal. However, if the defendant meets his or her burden in proving that they have complied with all provisions of the Act, the defendant has an affirmative defense against prosecution. The Act attempts to authorize a private and confidential patient-caregiver relationship to facilitate the use of marijuana strictly for medical purposes. Unfortunately, the experience in Michigan, as well as other states which have attempted to carve out this special exception, is that the use, possession, cultivation, distribution, storage, and manufacturing has not been limited to the private patient-caregiver relationship to facilitate the medical use of marijuana. Rather, it's been fraught with significant increases in criminal violations of the Controlled Substances Act, violations of the provisions of the Medical Marijuana Act, local zoning ordinance violations, building code violations, and the use of land and buildings for enterprises, buildings, facilities, and occupations described as medical marijuana, which have become a magnet for crimes and deleterious secondary effects. Further, the Federal Controlled Substances Act, 21 U.S.C. Section 903, authorizes state law. I have another screen. It authorizes state law which regulates controlled substances only to the extent that the state law conforms to the Federal Controlled Substances Act. The Federal Controlled Substances Act specifically preempts inconsistent state law. Section 903 states, "No provision of the subchapter shall be construed as indicating an intent on the part of Congress to occupy the field in which that provision operates, including criminal penalties, to the exclusion of any state law on the subject matter which would otherwise be within the authority of the state, unless there is a positive conflict between that provision of this subchapter and that state law so that the two cannot consistently stand together. Therefore, where there is a conflict between a provision of the federal law and the state law so that the two cannot stand together consistently, the federal law supersedes and the state law is excluded." The significance of this is that the federal law is the supreme law of the land under the United States Constitution. Article 6, Clause 2, known as the Supremacy Clause, states, "The laws of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby." Further, the United States Supreme Court has held under the Commerce Clause that the United States Constitution, Congress has the authority to ban the use of cannabis even where states approve its use for medical purposes. And that case was Gonzalez versus Raich, 545 U.S. 1. There is no provision under federal law that authorizes a city incorporated under the Home Rule Cities Act to violate or participate in or sanction an activity that is illegal under federal law. In fact, as we discussed, the Michigan Zone Enabling Act authorizes a municipality to prohibit a use that is unlawful. In fact, in the 1990s, if you recall, we were sued by the federal government when the city of Warren adopted a law in conformity with state law, but in violation of federal law, and we lost that case. That was the Justice Department case, and that is an example where we were following state law, which was inconsistent with federal law. And unfortunately, we lost the case, and it was determined that the United States Constitution and the federal laws preempt state law. In Edgar versus Mike Corporation, a United States Supreme Court case, the court held that under the Supremacy Clause, everyone must follow federal law in the face of conflicting state law. It has long been established that a state statute is void to the extent that it actually conflicts with a valid federal statute, and that a conflict will be found either where compliance with both federal and state law is impossible, or where the state law stands as an obstacle to the accomplishment and the execution of the full purposes and objectives of Congress. And the cite on that case is 457 U.S. 624. Therefore, federal law is the supreme law of the land, and state law that conflicts with federal law has been determined to be void. Therefore, the city is authorized under MCL 125-3207 to prohibit a land use that is unlawful under federal law. Further support for prohibiting marijuana enterprises, businesses, facilities, or similar purposes under the zoning ordinance, whether medical or recreational, are the significant deleterious secondary effects of such uses, which are documented in other jurisdictions as well as experiences here in the city of Warren. The types of deleterious secondary effects that are experienced in other jurisdictions is very well documented. Submitted and incorporated into this legislative record are the materials submitted to City Council, including the following: Medical marijuana local secondary effects summary dated February 22, 2011, prepared by the Warren Police Department. A written copy of the report, Secondary Effects of Medical Marijuana, a report for the City of Warren dated November 30, 2010 by McKenna Associates. Marijuana dispensaries in the federal government, recommendations to the Obama administration. White paper on marijuana dispensaries, California Police Chiefs Association Task Force on Marijuana Dispensaries, Summit on the Impact of California's Medical Marijuana Laws, City of Anaheim Special Operations Division Chief memo regarding medical marijuana dispensary ban ordinance, report on facilities that distribute medical marijuana within the City of Los Angeles, DEA position on marijuana, medical marijuana dispensaries and associated issues. In addition, I would bring your attention to the California Police Chief's website, which can be found at www.californiapoliceciefs.org/NAV files/marijuana files/agency documents. This enumerates summaries of between 200 and 300 criminal incidents per year related to medical marijuana and the problems associated with trying to carve out a limited exception to the Controlled Substances Act prohibitions. The United States Supreme Court has recognized the municipality's authority to rely on the secondary effects experienced and documented in other cities to support zoning decisions and regulations, provided that the zoning decision is designed to serve a substantial governmental interest. Cases which have held that are the City of Renton versus Playtime Theaters Incorporated, 475 U.S. 41, Young versus American Mini Theaters Incorporated, 427 U.S. 50, and the United States versus O'Brien, 391 U.S. 367, all United States Supreme Court cases. The substantial governmental interest in prohibiting enterprises, businesses, and facilities that engage in medical marijuana activities in violation of federal state law include impact on law enforcement, the deleterious secondary effects, and the impact on public health, safety, and welfare. And on the screen I have a list of what these types of activities are. Impact on law enforcement includes substantial increases in criminal activities such as robbery, burglary, aggravated assault, illegal business operations such as prostitution, extortion, and drug trafficking, use of facilities as a front for illegal operations, sale of excess marijuana on the black market. Increased criminal activities are not limited to just facilities where marijuana is dispersed or dispensed. It's also found at accessory facilities as well. Accessory facilities used as a front for illegal activities, significant increases in law enforcement, manpower, and costs. The deleterious secondary effects we've found include that it attracts crime, illegal drug trafficking in and near facilities, negative impact on adjacent businesses, increased traffic, odor, noise, concentration of uses resulting in the exclusion of other types of uses in the area, explosion of home-based businesses and using residential property for commercial and industrial uses, hours of operation that disturb adjacent uses, loitering and smoking outside the facility disturb adjacent uses, and it contributes to the spread of urban blight. The public health, safety, and welfare concerns include uninspected installations of plumbing and electrical facilities which create dangerous health, safety, and fire conditions, offensive odors, the lack of and need for ventilation systems, locations near schools and bus stops, enterprises, businesses, and facilities occupying premises without obtaining a certificate of occupancy, and unregulated accessory businesses as front for illegal operations. This fall, the City of Warren hired McKenna Associates, a professional community planning firm, to provide a report of the secondary effects of medical marijuana. Mr. Chris Duzin and Mr. Greg Milliken researched and prepared the report. Mr. Greg Milliken is here tonight to present the findings contained in the report entitled Secondary Effects of Medical Marijuana, a report for the City of Warren. This report has been submitted to City Council and request is made to incorporate it into the legislative record. Mr. Greg Milliken has a Master of Urban Planning from the University of Washington, a Bachelor's of Arts in Environmental Studies from Denison University. He is a principal planner with McKenna Associates, and he's been a professional planner for 10 years. And at this time, I would like to call him up to the podium to present his report.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. My name is Greg Milliken. I'm from McKenna Associates, and we were engaged last fall to prepare this study, which I believe you have in front of you. So my plan this evening is just to go through a few of the items in that report, highlight some of the issues in there, and summarize some of our findings in that report. A little bit about our methodology in putting this together. We researched the experiences in communities, not just in Michigan, but we had to look a little bit beyond Michigan because of the relative youth of this act here. Passed in 2008, there really weren't a whole lot of facilities and a whole lot of information coming out from communities about the impact of these facilities on those Michigan communities when we started doing this research in the fall. So while we were looking at communities in Michigan, we also had to look beyond. We looked at, in particular, California, where the act had been in place there for 15 years. We were able to generate a lot of information from communities in California about what they were experiencing. Certainly the act there in California allows for very different types of facilities, but on a macro level, a lot of the impacts, we can glean similar experiences and learn from what they're experiencing there. We also talked to folks in Colorado, folks in Oregon, where this has been in place since 2000, 2002, etc. And then we learned from places like New Jersey and Maine, where it's very new, but people are going through similar experiences as we are here in Michigan. We relied on both media accounts, reports and analyses available online, police reports, as well as interviews with planning directors, police chiefs, city administrators, etc. Now, since we did this report in November, and many of you follow the news, many of you follow what's going on, this whole issue of medical marijuana has really begun to proliferate and become more and more of an issue here in Michigan. And so what I've done is I've kind of supplemented the report and I've added some anecdotes here in our presentation about the experiences here in Michigan. And so I'll add some of that here to kind of give it a little more local flavor, a little more regional flavor. What we found was, with all the impacts that we were hearing about and seeing, they really kind of fell into two different categories. There were public safety, criminal impacts, sort of the hardcore police stuff, and then there were the quality of life, economic type impacts. Maybe not the hardcore police stuff, but definitely impacts on your community. So I'll talk about both of those. The criminal public safety impacts that we found, and we're beginning to see emerge here in Michigan, are based on the fact that this involves a significant amount of marijuana and often a significant amount of cash as well. They create targets for criminal activity. Even the folks that may be operating in complete compliance with the law, not even a criminal intent in mind, there's still a significant amount of marijuana, a significant amount of money that creates a target for that criminal element to enter into that environment and try to steal or take that marijuana and money. So people may be operating without any criminal intent at all, but they become that target for the criminal activity. So we saw plenty of evidence of theft of cash, theft of drugs from the facility, people stealing drugs from patients leaving the facility, hanging out outside knowing that patients are coming and going and there's going to be drugs there available for theft. Robbing employees going to and leaving the facility. They can take the keys and enter the facility then later. In one community, there were 5 of such incidents in a 6-month span. In LA, in a period from 2006 to 2007, crime in general had decreased, but incidents of robbery had increased 34%, assault increased 23%, and burglary from car had increased 19%. And those were in 6 different precincts that had the highest concentrations of dispensaries. When you have large amounts of drugs and money, and where people know there's a target, people want to secure those. And when you talk about security, oftentimes you're talking about weapons, talking about ammunition, and sometimes some more creative methods of security. In one Oakland County report, there were alligators used in a basement around a growing operation. So these are the types of things that your law enforcement will confront when they're entering into or addressing these operations in these facilities. At a seminar I attended a couple weeks ago, Lansing officials were there. And Lansing is a community where It's one of a couple different communities where these have really kind of taken off. Lansing, Traverse City, there's a lot of different dispensaries. They just passed a moratorium, and I think they said 60-some dispensaries or facilities came in and wanted to get licensed before the moratorium took effect. And they indicated that crime rates have increased in the last year since these dispensaries have come on board, particularly along Michigan Avenue, which is a commercial strip in town where there's a high concentration of these dispensaries. And another trend they mentioned in Michigan is, as I mentioned before, you have some lower level facilities where people are complying with the law and may not have as much medicine or as much supply on hand, and may therefore not have as sophisticated as security, if you will. And then you've got some higher intensity people, maybe not even doing anything medical marijuana related, they just have a grow operation and they're just dealing with marijuana. When a criminal element comes in and wants to take the drugs, they know the higher intensity people are going to have a lot of security involved, and they know the medical marijuana facility, they may not have as intense a security. So when they come in and they want to steal, they tend to go for the low-lying fruit. They tend to go for the places that aren't going to have as intense a security, maybe aren't going to have as intense of weapons and stuff involved. And so we're seeing a high increase in crime for those lower level, easier to take medical marijuana facilities, and therefore those that may be in neighborhoods or something become more of a crime risk. Those were trends that were mentioned at an MML seminar I attended last week in Wyoming. The fire hazard incident that was mentioned earlier, indoor grow operations require a significant amount of electricity, lighting, heat, also some plumbing. Folks that set these up often don't want permits. They don't want things on the record. They don't want to come in and talk to the city at all. So these are often do-it-yourself projects, weekend warrior type things, internet plans, and may or may not be done in compliance with any sort of code compliance. And so they become significant fire hazards, as was noted and attributed to several fires in Colorado and California. The other category of incidents that we created in our report was the economic quality of life impacts. Many communities, particularly in California where they have some larger commercial-based operations, indicated that where these businesses went in and they weren't as well regulated, they had a negative impact on surrounding businesses. You had odors, you had smoking, loitering in the parking lot, you had threat of crime, you had shoppers for that business going into other businesses looking for their medicine or their drugs. As a result, the adjacent businesses were leaving their leases, leaving the shopping centers, etc. In communities where there's a lot of vacant housing and vacant storefronts, that potentially affordable housing and a potentially affordable commercial space was being removed from the marketplace and being used as grow houses and dispensaries. They're seeing this in Lansing and in Garden City. And we saw it in Northern California and parts of Los Angeles. In I think it was Arcata, California, 800 to 1,000 affordable homes, vacant homes, were now being used simply for growing operations. It affects the reputation of a community. Michigan Avenue in Lansing is already tagged by one or two different nicknames. I've heard Grow Row associated with that strip of Lansing. Proximity to schools. Most regulations will say you've got to be compliant with the drug-free zone federal regulations, which is 1,000 feet from a school. But even when it's compliant with those, there have been incidents where you've found flyers attached to automobiles in school parking lots. And then in another incident in Alameda County, California, there was a 36% increase in arrests for minor in possession on school campuses, where a facility was even just outside of that 1,000-foot radius. There was a Hollywood dispensary that was giving free laced brownies to try to introduce itself to potential clients. There was a Modesto, California dispensary that was giving away free cigarettes to anyone who attended a planning commission meeting in support of them. These are incidents of increased marijuana in the community that this can bring about. And then just maybe more straightforward things of just traffic in a community, or in residential neighborhoods, et cetera, cars coming in and out to pick up their medicine. Odor, something I learned through this process. When the plants grow and bud, they produce a skunk-like odor. One Oregon planning director indicated they had to increase their setbacks. They do outdoor growing a lot in Oregon, and people couldn't even sit on their patios out in their backyard when their neighbors were growing because the odor was so bad, so they had to increase setback standards. So those are a few of our findings, a few anecdotes and statements from our report. I'd be happy to answer any questions from that broad sort of macro level, but I think some of your local enforcement officers will give you more of a local perspective. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
In addition to the deleterious secondary effects being a substantial governmental interest, the impact on law enforcement is also a substantial governmental interest. Tonight we have with us Deputy Commissioner Galasso and Lieutenant Glenn Breimer of the Warren Police Department, and they're here this evening to present a report on the impact that enterprises, businesses, facilities, and occupations for medical marijuana have had in Warren in the short time since initiated Law 1 of 2008 has taken effect. The report is entitled Medical Marijuana Local Secondary Effects Summary, dated February 22, 2011. Deputy Commissioner Galasso has been in law enforcement for 23 years, and he spent 4 years in the Drug Enforcement Unit. Lieutenant Glenn Breimer is in the Special Investigations Division. He has been in law enforcement 26 years and has spent 10 years in drug enforcement. And at this point, I would like to introduce Deputy Commissioner Galasso.
Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Council. Hope everyone survived the winter blast well, and I hope your backs are doing better than mine from digging out. First, I'm just basically going to give a brief synopsis of what is more of a micro concern than that we have. A lot of this will be somewhat redundant in terms of the gentleman that just presented his case before you. But I found probably the most salient factor of the weakness in the foundation of the act, this Medical Marijuana Act, is the ambiguity that's embedded in it. And this ambiguity has ultimately given off numerous secondary negative effects that can easily be outlined, and Lieutenant Breimer is going to give you some specific examples. Certainly, the businesses, or dispensaries as they like to be called, currently operate free of regulations, inspections, and proper certificates of occupancy. And that is something that's very relevant, obviously, to our city and our businesses. There is a criminal element that, without standing, targets buildings and residences that become known to cultivate, store, and distribute marijuana. This, of course, results in burglaries and robberies that do increase. And what we have encountered, and it makes all the sense in the world, one does not need a background in narcotic investigations or anything else. Criminals go after commodities that are easily converted into cash, and that can't be traced back to its origin or the rightful owner. And nothing could fit this class better than marijuana, whether it's grown under the medical guise or it's grown illicitly. Marijuana does not come with a serial number. It does not come with any identifiable marks. It doesn't come with anything that's remarkable. As a matter of fact, it's very unremarkable in that it's generally sold, whether it's under the Medical Marijuana Act or illicitly, in plastic bags, in small zip containers, and in mason jars, all of which can easily be obtained and procured either surreptitiously or through an act of violence and be sold directly around the corner to people that do not possess any type of medical marijuana card, who do not reach any particular age range. Obviously, that means it can be sold on the street to just about anyone. Also of major concern and relevance to our city is a collection of caregivers that will occupy a particular edifice that results in a large amount of vehicular traffic, pedestrian traffic, and what that does is something that ends up resulting in what I encourage our citizens to do. Uh-oh. Okay. It's got to be part of that storm.
Yeah.
Time's up, Louis.
It results in what I encourage our citizens to do, and that is report to the police any type of suspicious activity, types of foreign agents that come into a community or a business community. And they ultimately call the police to investigate because it's something that they're not accustomed to seeing, and that results in a lot of police resources being exhausted either at the patrol level and, more importantly, at the intelligence gathering level with undercover officers who ultimately find that their investigation leads to what commonly a prosecutor will look at and say, because of the ambiguous nature of this whole marijuana industry right now, we are not going to prosecute, or we're going to put it on hold, and we could have truly exhausted 2 weeks of intense investigation that goes to waste. And finally, other drugs and painkillers, surplus marijuana, have been located at these facilities, and they, of course, can easily be sold in these facilities based on the fact that, unlike liquor, the liquor industry and other industries, even tobacco for that matter, the enforcement and the control level is not present. And with that, I will introduce you to Lieutenant Glenn Breimer of our Special Investigations and Narcotics Section.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. You should have a report from the local summary. I won't belabor a lot of these issues here and go through it, but there are some interesting cases here that are concerns locally. We're seeing it more commonplace now than we did. A couple of the major examples with law enforcement, first and foremost, is it's labor intensive. We spend a lot of man hours investigating these medical marijuana cases specifically to find the proofs necessary to garner prosecution through the Macomb County Prosecutor's Office. Due to the ambiguous nature of the law, it takes a lot of time to collate that information, to find out what caregiver owns what plants at what location. A lot of times, there are the residency proofs at the location that is either rented, whether it be residential or commercial. There's no information as to who actually owns the facility at the level that we're dealing with as far as a rental type situation. So it's hard to find out who is accounted for, what amount of plants at what location. Most frequently with these commercial locations are that they're moving in without any authority through the city with building permits, inspection permits, and that's really commonplace now. Of the recent ones we've had 9 that we've investigated. 5 we've closed through our investigative efforts or with the assistance of the building department who did inspections on them and closed them down for not having proper occupancy permits or inspections, which worked out pretty good. Some of these that we've closed down are still under criminal investigations, and I wouldn't want to comment too specifically on some of those due to compromising those ongoing investigations. We still have 4 that are on the books that we're looking at. 1 is not active. There are 3 other ones that we're currently looking into for any other criminal activity and violations of the Medical Marijuana Act, if in fact those are present through our investigation. A couple of the issues, especially one on Christmas Day this year with a commercial location. We were not aware of this location at all. That was a medical marijuana facility of any degree. Uniform officer responded to a breaking and entering alarm at a business. They investigated the business, found out that a back door had been pried. There were surveillance videos of a gentleman actually prying open the back door, which led to the alarm call that led to the police responding. They entered the facility, found out that it was a medical marijuana educational facility that had obtained or got access to that location without proper building permits, business licensing, or occupancy permits. There was a small amount of marijuana found inside, less than an ounce. This was attributed to one of the employees of the location who was in fact a legitimate medical marijuana patient. Until this alarm went off and we investigated this, we had no idea that this facility was here because it was under the radar, both building and they're pretty secretive with the police department, so they're not going to come in and say, look, I'm opening up a facility here and I'm going over to this location on Ryan. One of our first experience with a residential issue with medical marijuana was back in January of 2010, and Warren sanitation workers had called the police department reporting that they had found potted marijuana plants discarded in the trash in front of a residence in the city. They called us, we investigated it, we found out that there were at least 18 plants there. Of all the ones that I've investigated since the inception of this, the individual that lived in this house who threw out these plants was, in my opinion, qualified for medical marijuana with the medical condition that this person suffered. But this individual had started a medical marijuana grow within her house, but had found out in the neighborhood that the kids knew that she was growing marijuana in her house, and because she feared of her home being broken into or her being robbed for these plants, she threw them in the trash. She was actually prosecuted because she was over the limit, and there was a plea negotiation accepted. There's a couple other ones here. A call of a breaking and entering at a house down on Chap Street. We go there, police find 70 marijuana plants. In this example, there was a denied application permit for a patient only at this residence. All the utility proofs were in the name of this denied application, but when we got into investigating it, we found out that there were a series of caregivers that claimed ownership of the property and ownership of the plants inside to account for the large amount of plants in there. This was presented, but there was no prosecution authorized due to the fact that the medical marijuana law is so ambiguous. They said that these caregivers could in fact have these plants at this location, although it didn't add up to who was actually renting the building, which in most instances was appearing as a vacant structure. The neighbors had called, seeing people coming and going on one occasion. There was entry gained. There's a couple other ones here. We had a tip on one of the residential streets. This is an example of, under normal circumstances, serving or executing search warrants for drug and narcotics. It's kind of a dangerous situation for both parties. The police want to be safe, as well as the residents of the premises. Usually there's forced entry, there is a knock and announce. There are occasions when, due to exigent circumstances, there is a no knock. A vast majority of the warrants we serve are knock, announce, enter the residence. You want to make sure everybody's safe, there's no harm, and no one's injured on either party. We had a tip from neighbors calling about a house. We checked it, we investigated. It took a long, arduous process to get enough proofs to support an affidavit for a search warrant. As we were serving the search warrant for the house based on drug activity, the homeowner arrived, indicated to us that they were in fact medical marijuana patients. We did, with them, check their facility. They did have their allowable amounts. They were medical marijuana people, and it was all legitimate. We didn't know otherwise, and we had no way to check in advance whether this was medical marijuana it was in its allowable parameters or not. So it kind of gives a dangerous situation on both sides of the fence with this, in that specific issue. There's one specific one, and I won't go through all of these. A gentleman calls in a B&E report at his residence and complains that his medical marijuana plants, the buds only, were stolen from his plants. The police investigated. Sure enough, the house was broken into. The plants were, the buds, obviously high-quality marijuana. He claimed it was worth $3,200. There was a loaded handgun in the room with these plants where the buds off the plants were stolen. The gun wasn't touched, so obviously they were there just for the plants. A little irony there is he's being prosecuted for other issues with his residence, but he was outside of his parameters. He couldn't allow plants. This is an example where his caregiver is now claiming that the caregiver was growing plants for his patient at the patient location, but the patient can't have plants. So that's one of the other ambiguous issues we deal with quite a bit. And then we do have a host of cases where medical marijuana patients, and of course it's prohibited by the Act and by law, suspected drunk drivers, suspicious vehicles where people are under the influence of medical marijuana, admitting they had smoked marijuana, they're operating a vehicle. All those are dealt with on a case-by-case basis by the prosecutor's office, and 90-some% of those are prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Other than suspicious vehicle calls, a lot of these in the residential areas, we've had a couple where there were large amounts of marijuana. The people were in fact medical marijuana patients, but they were outside of their parameters. It was apparent in these instances that they were meeting people and dealing large amounts of drugs, using the guise of medical marijuana to do full-scale drug trafficking operations. If you're looking at a suspicious vehicle in a hotel parking lot where you get a call and a police response, and they've got well over 5 pounds of marijuana there, that's way over the limit for even a caregiver. And on some of these are individuals just using the patient card as subterfuge to do quite a bit of drug trafficking. And like was reported earlier, there's a lot of money involved in this. There's weapons. There's the propensity for a lot of violence with this stuff. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
At this time, I would like to request that the City Council make all of the materials submitted to the City Council with the proposed amendment to Section 4.01 of the zoning ordinance, which demonstrate the deleterious secondary effects of medical marijuana enterprises, businesses, facilities, or similar uses, a part of the official record and minutes of this public meeting, to be filed with the city clerk and shall be referred to as the legislative record documents. There's a lot on that page. At this time, based on the studies and the testimony presented here tonight, I'm requesting that the City Council make the following legislative findings, which is included as page 9 of the materials that were handed out to the City Council, and I'm going to read through all of them, so I would appreciate your patience for the record. Number 1, enterprises, businesses, facilities, and similar land uses for medical marijuana are associated with a wide variety of adverse secondary effects, including but not limited to personal and property crimes such as burglary, unlawful robbery, unlawful entry, assault, illicit drug use, drug trafficking, negative impacts on surrounding properties, increased traffic, odor, noise, hours of operation, loitering and smoking outside of facilities which disturb adjacent uses, using residential property for commercial and industrial uses, the concentration of uses resulting in the exclusion of other types of uses resulting in the spread of urban blight. 2, enterprises, businesses, facilities, and similar land uses for medical marijuana are associated with a wide variety of public health, safety, and welfare concerns, including uninspected installations of plumbing and electrical facilities, creating dangerous health, safety, and fire conditions, offensive odors, lack of ventilation systems, locating near schools and bus stops, and occupying premises without obtaining a certificate of occupancy. 3, each of the foregoing negative secondary effects constitutes a harm which the city has a substantial governmental interest in preventing and/or abating. This substantial governmental interest in preventing secondary effects relates to those uses of land for enterprises, businesses, facilities, and similar uses which are illegal under the Federal Controlled Substances Act, 21 U.S.C. 801 at sequence, and differ from the effects of businesses, enterprises, and facilities that are lawful enterprises, businesses, and facilities under the Federal Controlled Substances Act and other applicable laws. 4, additionally, the city's interest in prohibiting enterprises, businesses, facilities, or similar land uses for marijuana, whether medical or recreational, extends to preventing future secondary effects of either current or future enterprises, businesses, facilities, or similar land uses that may locate in the city. 5, the city further finds that cases and documentation relied on in the secondary effects of medical marijuana report for the City of Warren by McKenna Associates are reasonably believed to be relevant to said secondary effects. 6, the city further finds that the report submitted by the Warren Police Department further documents that the incidence of criminal activity related to and connected with enterprises, businesses, facilities, and similar uses for marijuana and medical marijuana has increased significantly since the initiated law of 2008 was approved, resulting in an increase of deleterious secondary effects. 7, the city adopts and incorporates herein these stated findings based on the record tonight, including the documentation from the Warren Police Department's secondary effects, a report prepared by McKenna Associates for the City of Warren, the white paper prepared by the California Police Chiefs Association, the Summit on Impact of California's Medical Marijuana Laws, the report of the City of Anaheim Special Operations Division, a report prepared by the Los Angeles Chief of Police, the DEA's position paper on marijuana, and the dispensary report presented to the California Chiefs of Police Association. In addition, the extensive summaries of criminal incidents per year related to medical marijuana listed on the California Police Chief's website, and the report by Lieutenant Glenn Breimer of the Warren Police Department Medical Marijuana Local Secondary Effects Summary. 8, that under the Federal Controlled Substances Act, 21 U.S.C. 801 at sequence, and the Michigan Public Health Code, Article 7, MCL 333.7101 at sequence. Marijuana is a Schedule I drug, illegal for all purposes, and it is unlawful for an enterprise, business, or other facility to operate whereby marijuana is possessed, manufactured, cultivated, harvested, distributed, dispensed, stored, or used. 9, that in Gonzalez versus Raich, 545 U.S. 1, the United States Supreme Court held that under the Commerce Clause of the United States Constitution, Congress has the authority to ban the use of cannabis even where states approve its use for medical purposes. Therefore, federal officials may enforce and prosecute regardless of state medical marijuana laws. 10, that in Edgar v. Might, 457 U.S. 624, the United States Supreme Court has held under the Supremacy Clause, everyone must follow federal law in the face of conflicting state law. It has been long established that a state statute is void to the extent that it actually conflicts with a valid federal statute. And 11, the city recognizes and acknowledges and incorporates herein the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, MCL 125.3207, which authorizes the city to prohibit as unlawful those land uses which are illegal under the federal or state law, including the Federal Controlled Substances Act and Article 7 of the Michigan Public Health Code, and the judicial opinions which hold that federal law is the supreme law of the land into the legislative record related to the prohibition of marijuana enterprises, businesses, facilities, or similar uses under Section 4.01 of the zoning ordinance. And I would like to make a correction. The Zoning Enabling Act site is 125.3207. I misspoke. Lastly, request is made that the City Council approve the proposed amendments to Section 4.01 and Section 23.02 of the zoning ordinance with the revision to the last line of Section 4.01A, which will read, uses not expressly permitted within a specified zoning district are not permitted uses within that zoning district. And I'm here for any questions that you may have. I thank you for your patience. I know it was a long presentation.
Thank you very much. As we stated at the beginning, item 13 is a public hearing. Is there anyone else from the audience that cared to comment on this agenda item? Good evening.
Good evening. Karen Spranger, 7520 Hudson. I guess because when the people vote for something as a change, and we vote our right to amend or change a law, and law has a big history, right? Now, if we can, before this step of going back to what she just explained, we need to have a better understanding of the intent of what she's doing, because it's not clear to me on the intent of what the people want versus what she has designated. I don't understand the clarity of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Not seeing or hearing anyone, I'll close the public hearing and open this up for council action.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Green, support by Ms. Vogt. Any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Stevens.
I just have one quick question, if I could, to Mr. Milliken.
Yes.
Sir, thank you for coming. I was wondering, or do you know of any study that would show how many man-hours and/or a cost that is associated with this ill-conceived initiation or initiated law? I mean, as right now, tonight, we're spending countless man-hours. How many hours were put into the preparation for tonight? Do you know of any studies that would show that?
I don't know, but I would guess it was higher than any of us would estimate. I can tell you I've been to meetings like this for about a dozen different communities, worked with about a dozen different communities in this sort of process. And in every case, there's been comments like what you just made. It seems like it's taken a lot more time and energy and expense than this really ought to for a state law, a state constitutional amendment that the people all passed, yet why are municipalities having to go through all this process? I don't know the number, I don't know the cost, but that is a very common sentiment.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other comments from council members?
Madam Chair.
Ms. Vogt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Green? Are you asking that we adopt the legislative findings as part of our approving of
Yes,
this
I am.
ordinance?
Yes,
You are?
yes.
Okay, and it is just what's printed out here on page 9?
Correct. All of the materials will be made part of the record.
And I understand all the materials will be made part of the record, well, by adapting the legislative findings, or making that a part of this, then it becomes like a footnote, so to speak, of the ordinance, correct?
Correct.
So it just gives the background, the history, the purpose of the ordinance, the annotation.
Part of the, right, part of the purpose of the ordinance.
Okay,
The ordinance is a general ordinance. It applies to more than just. But for
Right.
purposes of marijuana, these legislative findings are important, that this is the experience and this is the rationale why that would be included in the general application of this ordinance.
okay, so we would know when we look at this that we're really adapting it in particular to pertain to the marijuana issue.
It's in addition to, I mean, the ordinance is a general law. It's under our general, 4.01 is under our general provisions.
Right.
And it applies to any unlawful uses. This just happens to be one of the uses that at this point in time is very important, and we're dealing with significant secondary effects. But the ordinance itself is not just for medical marijuana. It's for any unlawful use, and it is to provide us with additional enforcement tools anytime we come across an unlawful use, a land use. And that would provide for enforcement mechanisms under the nuisance abatement, zoning regulations, nuisance abatements that could be instituted in circuit court, as well as the misdemeanor provisions which provide for search warrants and other types of enforcement mechanisms. So I don't want to mislead the council that this is an ordinance provision that's going to apply only to medical marijuana. That's not true. If we came across a home or premises that were being used for dog fighting, the ordinance would be used as well, or for houses of prostitution or other types of unlawful uses.
Okay. Do we need to make, as part of the motion, reference that we are adapting the legislative findings based on reports and testimony submitted?
Yes.
I think it could be two motions. One would be a motion to adopt the legislative findings based on the record that was presented here tonight, and that could be a separate motion from the adoption of the ordinance amendment as presented.
Okay. All right, well, this is not part of the agenda, so how do you propose that we do it? Make this, Mr. Green has made the motion, I've supported it, to adapt the ordinance.
Correct.
And then before we move on to the second item, the next item, then adapt these findings?
Before you vote on the main motion, which is the amendment to the ordinance, I think it's proper to vote on the legislative findings, that this is the record that's presented here tonight. It would be an accessory or an ancillary motion.
Okay.
This was presented, and these are the findings, typical in any public hearing.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're still within Robert's rules and not violating any other, public act. So I would make the motion then that we adopt the legislative findings based on the reports and testimony submitted as set forth on page 9 and presented to us by Ms. Green this evening.
Motion by Ms. Vogt,
Madam Chair.
Support.
support by Mr. Green. Are you finished with discussion, Ms. Vogt?
I am, Madam Chair.
Ms. Martin.
Just for clarifications with that, it's my understanding that these documents are also to be filed with the clerk's office for record, to incorporate that in the motion with that as a public record.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Ma'am, was your question clarified? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. If you want to come to the podium. Thank you.
In part, yes, but I would like to follow up in another session if you would be interested in meeting to explain some of the terminology and technical things that were discussed today. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, I'm going to first call the secondary motion of adopting the legislative findings. Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously. Now I have the main motion of adopting the ordinance with a motion by Mr. Green and a support by Ms. Vogt. Mr. Green?
Wait, Madam
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, discussion?
Nancy Cooper Green has requested also that at this time that we replace the last sentence in subsection 4.01 with uses not expressly permitted within the specific zoning district are not permitted uses within that zoning district. Is that amendment okay with the?
Yes, my motion included that.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? I'll go ahead and call a question. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
Okay. Next agenda item is number 14, to receive comment on the proposed 2010-2011 CDBG budget to establish and fund recreation facility improvement.
Item number 14 is a public hearing. Anyone that would like to address this agenda item may do so at this time. Seeing or hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and open this up for a motion to receive and file.
Motion to receive and file.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Warner, support by Ms. Comartin. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The item has been received and filed.
Next agenda item is number 15. This item was tabled January 11th, 2011. Recommendation received from the Planning Commission for amendment to zoning ordinance number 30, Appendix A, zoning section 2.78, 2.79, and 2.80, definitions in new articles 4C, addressing state licensed child care facilities, consideration and adoption of an ordinance amending zoning ordinance number 30, Appendix A, zoning section 2.78, 2.79, and 2.80, definitions, and new articles 4C, addressing state licensed child care facilities, second reading.
Motion to approve.
I need a motion to remove from the table.
Oh, move to table.
Support.
Okay, I got a motion to remove from the table by Ms. Vogt and a support by Ms. Comartin. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The item has been removed from the table.
Discussion.
And now I need a motion to act.
Or, I'm sorry.
You want me to make the motion?
Sure.
I'll support.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Support.
Motion by Ms. Vogt, support by Mr. Stevens. Discussion, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There has been a lot of discussion on this, and I believe it was last week I spoke again with Ms. Nancy Cooper Green, and she asked me to make revisions to my amendments that I had. It was tabled with those amendments, in fact, if you recall, Ms. Vogt.
I don't recall that it was tabled with your amendments. It was just tabled.
Well, the discussion was,
A lot of this,
I made the motion to approve with amendments. Mr. Warner supported that, and then we went into discussion, and Mr. Bacamino wanted it tabled, and we tabled it with those amendments attached.
well, I think we tabled it, for whatever, we just tabled that. Well, it's already removed from the
Okay,
table, so it's what is in front of us, that's what we're looking at. If there's amendments, then,
All right, then I would like to discuss those amendments once again with you. And those amendments would be for section 4C.02B, to delete that. The group childcare homes, a limited one-time interior, exterior inspection by the City of Warren Division of Buildings and Safety Engineering is required pursuant to section 4C.07B. That would be deleted. Also, excuse me, 4C.07, group child care homes, districts allowed with approval. Item 4B, the one-time inspection fees would be deleted. And C, I had also requested that be deleted, but I have a question on that, if I may. Application for regulations. If I may, through the chair to Ms. Nancy Cooper Green.
Thank you, Ms. Green.
Good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Green. When we spoke, you had mentioned your concern about deleting that, that item. My concern and my reasoning, or my wanting to delete that, was because of 4C.073, location and criteria, where it talks about within 1,500 feet. My concern is that businesses, these current businesses that have been operating, some of them, 20 years plus, while we've been discussing this for the last year, it is possible that a foster care or, one of these other facilities may have moved within 1,500 feet of one of these existing and state licensed businesses currently. And so when they go before the ZBA, they would not be able to open up their business. That's my concern, and that's why I wanted to delete 4C, was to give them some sort of cover, I guess.
We do have in, under 3, locational criteria, language that states that in the event one of the facilities listed in subsection A above locates within the required distance after the group child care home receives special exception approval, the previously granted special exception approval shall remain in effect, and the group child care home may continue in the approved location. We could include similar language here under C. I don't think taking out C is going to have the impact that you've suggested. The fact of the matter is group child care homes operated in single-family dwellings do not comply with the zoning ordinance. They're not non-conforming uses. And so I think that there's some protections there in C that are probably important to continue, allowing 180 days for them to comply with the ordinance. And rather than just removing that, I'd rather see some language similar to C above, stating that in the event that that happened, it wouldn't, if they're already established, they would not be required to leave or not receive approval.
So we could add that language to C to give them sort of some cover in the event that within the last year, one of those facilities have moved within 1,500 feet?
Absolutely, I could get that to the council office tomorrow.
Okay, then I guess we could leave C in there then. And then, that would be all for my amendments that I would ask you to adopt then.
So the two amendments would be, right, there's just two, deleting the two paragraphs?
That's correct. 4C.02B
B
and
4C.07
4B.
4B. 4B.
Do you accept the amendments as requested, Ms. Vogt?
Yes, with discussion, please.
Thank you.
Mr.
And,
Stevens, are you finished?
Yes, thank you, Madam Vogt, and I
Madam Chair.
give up.
Okay. Discussion, Ms. Vogt, then Ms. Comartin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had really mixed feelings about these inspections. I know the state inspects. My concern was for the safety of the children, and that was my discussion when this was last on the agenda, and I think a legitimate concern. Looking at it a little further, the state does inspect, apparently does a pretty decent inspection, number one. Number two, at times it seems that maybe our building inspections gets a little heavy-handed. We've seen that with some of the homes that have been purchased and building come in and inspect, and the cost for making repairs to become compliant when a home was purchased that was inspected prior to the purchase. It has been overly burdensome to some people, and in this economy, it's not a good idea to burden people financially if we can avoid it. So for those reasons, I'm willing to go along with the deletion of those two paragraphs. So, thank you.
Ms. Comartin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. Through the chair to Nancy Cooper Green, please, Assistant City Attorney. Good evening.
Good evening.
I know we talked earlier about C. I think we covered that. I did feel uncomfortable with deleting that altogether. I think we've got that worked out. So in the situation of the existing child care facilities, for the record, again, those people will not be affected with the additional language that we're going to add to that paragraph, correct? They will have to go before the Zoning Board of Appeals, pay a fee, or are we eliminating that with the existing and only for new?
There is a fee, the same fee that's charged for any residential variance or special exception.
Correct.
That is required by the Zoning Board of Appeals across the board for everyone equally.
Okay, so everybody will be included in that fee. The fee is $95. I verified that with the building department. I don't know if somebody is here from the building department that can state that for the record, but I wanted to make sure those child care facilities understand that it is a $95 fee for the ZBA under the residential, and they have 180 days to apply to take care of that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I did contact the state. I went through the inspection aspect. I did visit some of the child care providers who went through their homes, and I was really impressed with what they have done to the facilities and how up to date they are with everything that they have for the children and that. So I was truly pleased to see that. I'm glad that we added in the ordinance about people living in the homes. That was an issue for me because those are the complaints that I had. I had somebody that was a transient daycare provider, and the residents that had talked to me had an issue with that, so I'm glad that they do have to live in the home and be an owner of that home. There is no rules or regulations that dictate in the fact of a rental home, long as the child care provider is registered and is licensed, correct? Just for the record, I did have some questions on that.
Correct. All residential structures are treated the same.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much. That answers my questions and clarifies the record for a couple people. Thank you.
Any further comments? Ms. Green, just one, I agree with the deletions and the addition made to the item on, forgetting the exact number, 407C.
Yeah.
With that line not being with us or clarified at this moment, if this were to pass, will just the addendum sent to our council office tomorrow be acceptable, or, I mean, how, should this be tabled for that? I don't want to table this further, but I don't know what level of clarification we need to ensure that that line is properly added.
You can just ask to have it added.
You can just include it in the motion to add it, that in the event one of the facilities listed in subsection A above locates within the required distance.
Within the last year, or?
To an existing, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
you have
Not
that,
within
Mr.
time, but-
Sadowski? I just
right.
want to make sure
To an
Mr. Sadowski had
existing-
the,
To an existing.
Existing.
Licensed group childcare home.
You said you're reading this from another section in the,
Right.
section
Yeah.
C, right
3C.
above number
Right
4.
above it.
See right there.
okay.
So just a duplication of that exact wording would cover
Well, not
that?
exactly, we have to change a few of the words.
That's what I figured. In the event one of the facilities.
In
That the
event
group
that-
childcare
Chair.
home may continue in the approved location. So it would read, in the event one of the facilities listed in subsection A above located within the required distance of an existing group, licensed group childcare home, the group childcare home may continue in the approved location. That is the sentence that we would add to 4C.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that clarification before we voted on the item. Mr. Bacamino?
I was just going to go through the chair to Judge Biernatt, see if, is that acceptable? Can we vote today on something that's going to be amended tomorrow?
I believe it's done with specificity.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and call the question. Ms. Vogt?
Thank you.
Okay, with the two deletions and the addition of that sentence to 4C.07C, yes.
Mr. Stevens?
With those amendments, yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
No.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed, 8-1.
Item number 16, consideration of an ordinance amending Chapter 22 entitled Offenses, Article 8, Section 22-191 to 22-211 of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Warren related to regulation of controlled substances, first reading.
Need a motion and support?
Motion to approve?
Support.
Motion by Mr. Sadowski, support by Mr. Stevens. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
Item
Madam Chair,
6,
Mr. Green?
could we get a quick break?
I have a request for recess.
Keep going.
Council will go into recess for
Thank you. 50 minutes.
It's just a
All set? We'll go ahead and resume the council meeting. We're on item 16B.
Consideration and adoption of a resolution to adopt substantial amendments to the 2010-2011 City of Warren Housing and Community Development Action Plan, also known as Round 3 of Neighborhood Stabilization Plan, NSP 3.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Vogt,
Support.
support by Mr. Liss. Discussion?
Madam Chair.
Ms. Comartin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thought she was walking up. In regards to this, there's a couple different new things that have come up on this. One, are they going to be eliminating the CDBG money altogether? And it's just going to initiate as NSP from now forward?
We have not received that information up to this date. As you could tell from the last the public hearing earlier this evening, we still are expected to receive community development block grant funds.
Right.
However, this NSP plan was specifically geared toward housing development, and there are different restrictions that have been placed on this plan development versus the previous two plans.
Okay, and then the new stipulations, I understand that the areas have been made smaller. Maybe you can just explain what the areas are to the general public?
Certainly. The instruction that we received was that this plan had to include very specific target areas, and if the council would look on the back of their packet, I'm not sure what order you might have received it in, but the plan must include a very specific map of the target areas in which the monies will be spent. And the target areas were established based on the exact same criteria that the community development block grant funds are typically approved by HUD and the federal government in terms of income guidelines, the census tract information. That's what they use to determine what target area, how it must qualify.
Okay, and then as far as letting the federal government know some of the, like the pitfalls of the past program that we had with 11, is there any kind of correspondence or anything that we're doing with 11 to maybe do some town hall meetings or anything like that with the general public?
We are going to be holding 3 meetings to gain input, although a public hearing was not required for the preparation of this plan. And however, like every allocation that the communities have received, there's a very quick deadline on the submission of this plan. As the council may have read, we must submit our initial plan by March 1st. And we didn't receive the allocation amount until sometime in December, received training in late December and early January, and here we are with our plan and have to have it submitted by March 1st. But we do intend to, in fact, during the training process, there was much discussion that took place about those pitfalls. All communities experienced many of them. So I don't know how much of that was taken back to Congress, but we can contact Congressman Levin and communicate those to him.
Yeah, I just think they are our voice up there, you know, with the federal government and a lot of the stuff that's happening in the communities. I mean, everybody hears it here and we see what's going on, but are they really getting the message? You know, and sometimes they have to be the voice for us. I know that we have had communication with HUD directly and have communicated with them and spoke to them about some of the pitfalls. But when we have a program initiated and we only can get a couple people through, if that, and I think we only had, what, 1 that actually, or I don't know what the total count was.
Out of 70 applicants, 1 qualified.
Yeah, and that's just unbelievable.
It was very disheartening.
Yes, to say the least. You know, especially with the number of foreclosure homes, we want to get families in as quick as possible and try to, you know, utilize some of those NSP funds to get vacant homes, you know, filled. And now we have to do the rehab, and I know we've all had some issues about the money of the rehab and then what's coming out, but I know it's going for a good cause and that we are getting, you know, some of those homes filled. As far as qualifications of the individual, we are looking at moderate to income.
Yes, the income guidelines will be the same that has been established by the federal government for other community development block grant usage.
Yep.
So I don't have those in front of me unless they're in our information. I believe they are. They're broken down. They're quite...
Is there anything publicized for the public on that?
No, but there will be. As soon as the program plan is approved
Adopted.
by HUD, we will begin promoting the program very aggressively.
All right, I understand that with our new real estate agent that we have, that we've done some open house, and we had great success for the number of people that we had through. We had over 20 people through,
Yes.
which I think is incredible. So I think that is great. You know, it just says that we are getting some people coming through the properties and seeing what we really can do with them. So that's good to hear, and maybe that'll give a little competition and boost the prices, because we need that in our economy right now to bring up our values. So,
Yes, we do.
all right, thank you.
Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Mr. Buckmino.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Ms. Borges. Quickly, I'm just looking at the map you referred to, and can you tell me if you know if the city of Centerline is also in this NSP3 plan?
They are receiving funds, but their funds are being administered through the Urban County Program, through the County of Macomb, because of the size of their community. Many of the community's funds will be administered through the Urban County Program because of the size of their population and geographic area.
The only reason I ask is because I know with the new governor's budget proposal with shared revenue sharing for municipalities, one of the conditions was consolidation and joint operations, and I see that one of the areas that you have highlighted here on the map abuts the city of Centerline. I'm trying to think of a way that with stabilizing a neighborhood, if they have money and we have money, I mean, you know, you live in the neighborhoods as well as we all do in that area. The streets, or Centerline Street turns into Warren Street just like that anyway, so it makes more sense to me if 2 or 3 homes in one small area were added to stabilize the street. Are we in any communication at all with Centerline at this time? I know you said it's not administered by Centerline, but are we in communication of where they're using their money, so possibly we could reinforce certain neighborhoods that have shared streets?
We're not, and haven't been yet, about this plan, but you make a very good point, because one of the requirements of this plan is that certain neighborhoods are impacted by the use of the funds and not spot
Absolutely, makes
spent.
sense.
In other words, you know, spent, you know, monies here and all over the city, and that's why these maps were chosen by the committees. Committee was to make specific, you know, impact in these areas. So I'm sure they have target areas abutting that entire target
Absolutely,
area.
I'm thinking, wow, what a great way to satisfy state requirements, federal requirements, and get a bigger piece of the pie for both our communities with this new governor proposal. If you know anybody in Centerline that was willing to communicate, I'd be happy to sit down with them and figure out, you know, a coffee, lunch, do it the old-fashioned way, and figure out if there's any way, because now with the new contingencies, we're going to have to find ways to share. I mean, it's just, that's the reality of the situation. I do like what Ms. Comartin said, too, is if you can get that competitive spirit going, too, if the two cities cooperate and people see that there's 20 people going through homes, if there's 3 or 4 in a small area, I think that would drive the prices up for that entire area, at least give people more choices and more competition. So if anybody in Centerline, you know, or you're scheduling, include me in, and I'll make my own calls as well. Thank you.
You're welcome. If I could just
Yes,
respond quickly.
I'm sorry.
If I recall from the last program, they were allocated a very specific amount of money, like the cities of Roseville and Fraser, for example, and just off the top of my head. And again, the county administered those programs, but that doesn't mean that if they're, you know, they want to choose to use their funds in a specific area, that would not be approved. I mean, that is something that could be
So if we
considered.
do get communication, there are certain parameters which we can possibly...
It could work.
Could
Let me
work.
just put it that way.
Because
That's
I'll
the
tell
only
you
thing I
what,
can-
this last snowstorm, my neighbor's snowblower died, but what I saw was amazing with Warren residents is that the guy that had the snowblower came 5 houses down to help each other, neighbors helping neighbors, and I'm thinking, you know, it's time for Centerline and Warren to be acting like neighbors and find out these new parameters federally and statewide, work together so we come out with a win-win situation. But I want to especially thank Bob and Val for coming down the street this last snowstorm, helping out the neighbors with their snowblower. Thanks.
Mr. Sadowski?
Okay, thanks. Kind of going off on what Mr. Bacamino had stated, and you're talking just basically with NSP money and doing shared services. I was writing something down and I caught only about part of that conversation.
Well, what I see is I've been reading what the governor's been sending down through the newspapers and that about how the municipalities will have to, the pot's getting smaller, but if you want a piece of that pie, smaller pie, you're going to have to show shared services, shared monies, shared things like that. And I see here the map abuts Centerline, the Warren area, on the last page there, and I thought maybe that's one of the things that we could show, that we are sharing the NSP, the federal money, and maybe the governor then would reward both cities.
Because we've talked about this in the past, I know we're kind of going off topic a bit here, but I've always said, and I think we should do this, we should extend an invitation to Centerlines, City Council and to the mayor, to have a joint committee of the whole. I know that there are presentations that have been put together regarding police, fire, and parks and recreation, and I think that maybe at this point, we should extend that invitation to their council, come over and listen to the presentation. No action has to be taken.
No.
All it is just, is like you said, just communications. I'll tell you what, I'll put that on the next council agenda, that we send that invitation over. I'll come up with a specific date, and we'll extend that invitation to them, and we'll see if we can get those 3 departments together to do that.
And perhaps if they, they'll re-extend it to us. And first time, let's make sure we get some food and good. It's always better when you're talking to a neighbor and they bring food over, or you have food ready. So I think that's the way we should treat it, as a good old-fashioned neighbor get-together, and we're inviting them over. Maybe I'll pick up a tray of...
No, have Mr. List do it. That food he brought in last time.
It was delicious, but I don't know if we can...
It was from Royal Oak.
Oh, all right.
All right, thank you.
Any further comments from council members? Ms. Burgess, real quick, in regards to the funds, just for reminder's sake, when we sell, after we've rehabbed or built a home and the house is actually sold, those funds return to this plan account, correct?
Correct. It's not, a specific, it's not called the NSP3 plan account, but it is Community Development Block Grant funds.
Okay, so whatever proceeds we're able to garner from this, although most of these we don't, we're not making millions on this situation, but we're able to reinvest and continue. Would it still be limited within these target areas, or at that point does it become open to CDBG projects in general?
That's a good question. I will have to check into that. I really don't know. From the training that we received, I would assume that it has to be reused for rehabbing homes and making affordable housing available to our residents. But I can check on that and maybe have some information for the public hearing upcoming.
Okay. Because as Ms. Comartin mentioned in the beginning of the meeting, we were talking about some of the roadways at Waltham and Wellington and whatever, and I didn't know, how long does that restriction, I guess, of the area that it can be used in, which, I'm sure those areas need attention to their roadways too, but it might be something that as these monies are funneled back, whatever proceeds are funneled back, we'd be able to use it for those kind of improvements in the long range and start developing. Do we not have a set plan then for those recaptured funds?
Well,
just because I realize we don't have an exact number of what that will be.
Well, that's true. And we're developing the 5-year plan right now that will be brought back to the City Council. So I would recommend that while that plan is being developed, that those roads or any amount of the CDBG funds that want to be used for the repair of roads be placed in that plan. And, you may or may not make it happen in that particular year based on the need for something else comes up and you need to use. But I think that as that 5-year plan unfolds, that would be the best time to use those funds. And you can also pre-program funds for road repair, but again, they have to be in the target areas. They have to be in eligible areas.
Right. On the creation of that 5-year plan, are there going to be kind of, I guess, work sessions, or, is this strictly within the committee that's establishing the 5-year plan, or is that something, I'd like to see some workshops, I guess, with members of the administration, with members of council, to where we help establish a priority list of where we think that should be.
I think that a committee of the whole meeting would be the best way to approach that, so that we can come to the council, and if we expect to continue to receive the amount of funds that we're receiving now, which is what we're told, but I know you've all heard recently about community development block grants being under fire, so to speak. In terms of elimination, I don't think that means that we should stop planning for the future, and I think that meeting and hearing what the council would like to see in that regard is the best way to approach it.
Do you know what stage you're at in the creation of the 5-year plan?
Actually, they're just beginning it.
Okay.
So we could do a meeting of the whole and give you the ideas that the committee has set forth so far, and then we could listen to what the majority of the council wants and build that in.
Okay.
Because we don't want to bring a plan to the council that is going to be, you know, not accepted. And we also know that there are so many needs in the city that it's just a constant struggle of where to place the monies.
The demand is definitely far exceeding the supply. Okay, that's really what because, you know, we've had previous plans, maybe not to this magnitude or this definition, but I feel like council many times is left to be reactionary. And I'm not saying that anyone is to blame, just other than the fact that I would rather that council be able to provide some input or some sense of direction, not a dictation, but a collaboration with amongst ourselves as far as where these funds, you know, should go on, and making sure that we all agree on the priority that's being established within acknowledging what restrictions are there, rather than a lot of times it comes up here, we review it, and then, okay, well, no, I don't like this part, or why didn't we do this, or whatever. I think it would help streamline things a little bit easier myself.
Okay, I can contact the council secretary's office and find out what a date acceptable to the council would be, because I would recommend that we do it relatively quickly. The public hearing on the community development block grant funds for this year, as you know from your communication, is March 22nd. And so it's not too soon to even, you know, sit down and talk about this year's funding.
Okay, great, thank you very much.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Liss.
Ms. Burgess, can you turn that light off?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I think it's on the back.
Oh, yep.
Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, I'll go ahead and call the question. Ms. Vogt.
Yes.
Mr. Liss.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Ms. Comartin.
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski.
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
16C.
Thank you.
16C, consideration and adoption of a resolution approving change order number 1 and final, which increases the contract amount by $2,672.80 with Pamar Enterprises Incorporated, WS-09-525, 2009 and 2010 annual excavation and water main and sewer repair, and authorizing the mayor and the clerk to execute said change order.
Madam Chair, I'll move the motion, the resolution.
Motion by Mr. Liss, support by Mr. Green. Any discussion? Seeing or hearing none, I'll call the question. Mr. Liss.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Ms. Comartin.
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Vogt.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski.
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
16D was item 4C on the consent agenda, tabulation of bids and recommendation in Ray ruggedized laptop computers for the fire department, ITB-W-8318, and consideration and adoption of a resolution accepting the lowest qualified bid submitted by Advanced Wireless Telecom in the amount of $17,873.90.
Need a motion and support?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Warner.
Support.
Support by Mr. Stevens. I asked that this item be pulled from the consent agenda because I had a couple of questions. Mr. Criscola, would you mind, or Mr. McAdams? Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for hanging in there with us. First of all, when the bid specification specifically discussed how some of the people that bid, what their warranty was and what it didn't include. And in the note number 4 of the bid spec sheet, I don't know if you have that, it talked about how, you know, Tough Book preferred warranty also included, but it didn't give a breakdown of what that warranty was in comparison to the other ones that were not accepted.
Note 4? Yeah. Evening, council. Note 4 refers to like as you stated, the warranty. What was provided to me, what the preferred warranty meant was that they have preferred partner status, or Advanced Wireless had preferred partner status with Panasonic, that they demonstrate the capability to provide exemplary sales and service of public safety. How that differs from what 4 is, our paradigm is, I'm not quite sure.
Okay. Do we have a length of time of the warranty even? Is it a 3-year, 5-year, 1 year?
I don't know.
Okay.
I want to say that I want to say 2 years, but I'm not positive. I couldn't be positive.
Okay. Also, the request is being made for the purchase of 5, and being that the primary justification in wanting to go to these was the fact that it would help in the entering of data and, you know, reduce duplication of work. And with our previous action, we just approved to where we were ultimately looking to have 6 EMS transports or ambulances in service. So why only the purchase of 5 at this time?
We have one that we purchased when we started up.
Okay.
So we would have a 6th one. We purchased 2. We purchased a CF30, I believe it was a 30 at the time, and also a CF19. The CF30 is the traditional laptop that opens up. The CF19 is the more of a tablet kind where the screen opens up, spins around, folds down on itself. And we wanted to test those out. We found that one was going to be too small for our needs. So that's since been taken over by the hazmat team. But we still have a CF30, which is just an earlier version of the CF31.
Okay.
So we do have a 6th one.
And you don't feel at this point that it's necessary to upgrade that one as well, or?
No, it'll just have a slightly slower processor.
Okay. I've also done some background checking, and I know we're handling the billing for the transports ourselves. In purchasing these, have we considered at all at looking into going direct with our billing to Acumed, with Acumed software?
Yes, we had a presentation last Wednesday to use what's called Acumed Web. And the problem with that, we like their program. However, we would lose control of our data, and it doesn't allow us to bring our data back from them to us. So essentially, if we go to Acumed Web, then we will have to input our data into their system, and then come back to our station and re-enter it again. So it would be 2 software programs supplying the same data to 2 systems.
Well, and we're back to duplicating services.
Duplicating services.
Okay.
So at this point, we still want to go with our own software and maintain control of our own data.
What kind of control, because I'm sure that they're adhered by the HIPAA laws as well, what kind of control are we losing?
The actual warehousing of the information. Once it's accumulated, once we enter a incident number into their system, it's gone. It doesn't stay on that tablet. It leaves that tablet and is uploaded to their website, and that information is deleted from the laptop. Okay. So it doesn't have a warehousing ability.
Have we had discussions with them about, changes to the software to allow for that?
To their software?
Yeah.
Not changes to their software. We just had their presentation for using their software. And He indicated that anything was possible with money, but at this time, they are not providing the direct access that we would want. That would have to be something that would be negotiated with them.
Okay, what about any offers of additional discount for using their web?
Yes, there is. If we were to use Acumed Web, we could save 1%, which amounts to about $20,000.
Okay. Have we compared that against any kind of costs if we were to negotiate with them? I just think that, I guess what my long-term goal here is that if we, obviously I don't want to incur further costs, but if we can negate those costs with the additional savings that they're offering and eliminate any kind of backlogs with the billing, that would be beneficial to the city down the road in the fact that we would receive the revenue from the billing faster.
Yes.
Is what my intention is. So.
And then we would lose control of about 10,000 incidents, all the information that goes with it.
Well,
So-
at this current stage, but I'm saying if a negotiation were made for the software to be amended to where we didn't lose that control, or we still retain that data.
And it is something that I haven't ruled out completely, but regardless of which way we go, if we stay with our current system or migrate to Acumed Web, we will need a laptop to input the data. It's a software program, be it ours or theirs, that would be added to the laptop.
And that really boils down to my direct question and the fact in the purchase of these laptops, should we explore items like this or others? Are we aware of its ability to be compatible?
It's
Or
just
to adaptable to this type of software?
It's a software program.
Okay,
Yeah.
but nothing that would require anything beyond what these laptops offer?
No. Essentially, the communities that surround us are using the same laptop, just loaded with Acumed Web software. So it's a software issue.
Are we carrying any kind of insurance on these? Backup or, I mean, are they, what's the procedure, I guess, in backupping any information that we are downloading to them or, God forbid, they get stolen from a truck or something, whatever. What's the insurance or the backup for that?
The city is self-insured, but
On the replacement?
yes.
Okay, but I'm talking about the insurance to the data that's in it. Are we doing, is it required that they download each night to some master?
Sometimes, our plan is that when our trucks enter our stations, it'll automatically download into our system just by driving under, what is that called, some point. A wireless point.
Wi-Fi.
Okay, I'm not a tech geek, but they'll drive in and it'll automatically download to the server.
Oh, on each station then?
At each station.
Just like the police.
Okay, all right, that's what I need to know. All right, thank you very much for being here, I appreciate it. Any other questions from council members? All right, with that, I'll call the question. Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Liss?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
Thank you,
you again,
council.
gentlemen.
Item number 18, audience participation.
Okay, audience participation. For those that are new to council meetings, we do have a 3-minute time rule for those wishing to speak under audience, and our first speaker is Tony Police.
You're up, Tony.
Oh, we can't hear?
Good evening.
Good evening. Tony Police, 8520 Darlene. I got some articles in the paper that I want to talk about. But on the item number 14, to set up a budget to establish fund recreation facility improvements. Is anything about all the money that's being paid, like I rent the park, it costs me $100. Is that something that can be available to them to have improvements? Just a question. The other one is the swing dance. I got nothing against senior swing dancing. I can't do it anymore, but I can slow dance like crazy. My statement, as far as I'm concerned, there's only a couple of little things, is that I truly believe this Carolyn was just looking for some answers about some things that were going on. I don't think she was being political about it. I don't think anything like that. I will say this. I've always kind of like approved any articles in editorials for the Macomb Daily, but I'm not satisfied with the last remark on the other one. And it goes back to Mayor Fouts, the guy that I don't hate. And this is just from the paper. Maybe MS Mosseri and I should go there and dance and have a lot of fun together. Maybe she needs to go there and kick up her heels. That's a very unprofessional statement as far as I'm concerned. And what makes it even worse is that the editorial kind of agreed with them in today's paper. Not going to say too much more about it. One good thing, one bad thing. About, I don't know, a week or 10 days ago, my street, Darlene, had a water main break. We had 6 inches of water from my house all the way down to Lorraine. I called, got some very good response. I don't remember the guy's name, but he works afternoons in that department. And by 1 o'clock in the morning, they were out there fixing the problem.
Motion to extend the speaker's time by 3 minutes.
Motion by Mr. Bacamino to extend the speaker's time. Support. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you. And then I called them back because we lost 6 inches of water and had 4 inches of ice because it got cold. Asked for a salt truck, and that salt truck was there inside of 3 hours. Went up and down in front of the block, in front of my house, 3 or 4 times. Talked with the inspector, and I just want to say that they did a heck of a job. Now, the bad thing about the snow removal is this. This last snow that come down now, I can only talk about my block and where I drive. It was terrible. There was no rhyme nor reason to what was going on with the snow removal. You guys have a good night.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Maury Daniels.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, before we go to the next speaker, I got some information on former Mayor Bates' funeral on 2/25, which is Friday. There'll be visitation from 3 to 9 at Temrowski Funeral Home. That's located on Common Road and Hoover. The funeral will be Saturday. Right now, they just have time pending. So again, this Friday from 3 to 9 at Temrowski Funeral Home is visitation, and then Saturday will be the funeral for former Mayor Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Sadowski. We apologize, Mr. Daniels. Please begin.
Okay, the first part of the question for the gentleman just up here. Ms. Mosseri is not going to be able to do that because she's staying in the fights Mr. Foss runs, so you'll understand what that means. Got my few questions for council tonight, and Mr. Barrett, to the council, the chair. I'll be here next meeting to hear the answers of these questions. Number one, has Mayor Foss ever been in the service? If so, what rank and what service? 2, was he ever in action? Number 3, did he ever leave this country, the United States, where we live today, and then come back? This is easy to do. This one's done under passports. Took me a while to figure that one. I'm not too smart. This man is peddling a lot of newspapers around, accusing everybody of everything, and we don't know much about him. You see, this is not a treasure hunt, this is a skeleton hunt. About the same thing. Get the skeletons out of the closets. You look in my closet and you get my skeletons. Why don't I go look in yours and get your skeletons? It's a whole lot of things I've got questions on this man. And I would like to see his service record, which you won't find, and let the veterans of foreign wars at least give them a burn barrel where they can take these 10-cent crap of paper and burn them. And that's what's going to happen. I'd like to see a motion on the floor tonight that somebody would get these answers for the people of the city of Warren that's going to be looking to pick a mayor. We deserve to know the answers. And we are the Warren. Mr. Barrett, I'm sure you came in as a new city attorney to see the lousy mess the city is in. You probably might be like the rest of them, pack the suitcase in the middle of the night and run. I hear very good things about you, and I'm hoping you stay because you're some good people. And my last question, do you think there's going to be a chance of opening a weasel hunt for one day through the coming year? City of Warren residents, we do deserve a weasel hunt. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker.
Can we get the answers to these questions at the next meeting, please?
Our next speaker is Pauline Holton.
Make a motion on the floor to do it.
Good evening.
Hi, I'm Pauline Holton. I'm coming from Shelby Township. And from what I understand, that you guys are going to get together with us with Shelby and Sterling Heights and kind of create things together. Well, I'm here tonight to talk about smart meters. Do you all know what smart meters are? Anybody? Okay, I'll tell you. They want to put it on our houses, our gas, electric, and our water. I'm concerned about this, of what they're going to do, what they're going to use it for. They're building these huge towers, all these sensor things are going to be going around all over the place. And I'm concerned for our people or our privacy rights. And I'm here tonight to talk to you about it, see what you guys can help us do with it. Because I think our privacy rights are being violated here. And I think that the township should get together and talk about this situation, even put it on your agenda about this, because I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of questions and needs to be answered here. And I think that in regards to our Fourth Amendment right, this is taking away our privacy. And I think the council needs to do something in regards to this. And I'm asking you tonight if you could possibly put it on your agenda next time or something, so we could get it out to the floor so everybody will know about smart meters, what they're about, what they're going to do, what to expect.
Okay.
Could I hear something from any of you? Do you know about them? You know what they're going to do to everybody's rights?
Ma'am, I just want to explain that council's not to respond during audience
Oh,
participation.
okay.
But
Okay, what I do want to do, tell the people of Warren, like I've told the people of Shelby Township, that it's going to be interfering with our lives, all these little sensors and little smart things, smart this, television, washers, dryers, and then they're putting up all these huge towers. They're going to be monitoring all this stuff, and it's going to take away our privacy. And like I say, I'm here today to talk to you guys about it, to make sure the people of Warren know to be prepared for these meters coming into their area. And we need to say no. We need to get and talk to our House Representative people, our senators, and tell them this is against our Fourth Amendment right for our privacy in our homes, and we need to do something about this. And I'm asking the people of Warren to call their House of Representatives and senators and tell them no, say no to smart meters. Thank you.
thank you very much. Our next speaker is Sharon Schmidt.
I want to thank everyone. Yes, my name is Sharon Schmidt. I'm from Clinton Township, and yes, I want to talk about these meters. I also want to draw to your attention, it's a health issue. We all value our health. If we didn't have our health, we can't do our jobs. We can't come and function. Now, these meters are also connected with the wireless computers and cell phones. These towers are going to be built to take these signals in. These signals give off radiation. How much can we handle as human beings? Now, this is not just state, it also statewide, countrywide, the whole nation. And I also want to tell you that the White House is in on this, because they also gave grant to give money out of this. So what I'm going to ask everybody to do is do more homework on these meters, the grant, where it all comes from. And I'll probably want to read this because I figure it's very important. I don't make this stuff up, okay? So please bear with me. The nation, the federal stimulus, is providing $3 billion in grants to modernize the nation's electrical grid through projects like smart meters, and it is expected to create thousands of jobs. And said by Ed Montgomery, I hope I got his name right, bear with me, and he's the head of the White House Task Force on automotive the community and workers, with joint energy at the news conference. So all of this is coming from the top down. So if it's coming down from the top down, then we got to work with other states like California. They're ahead of us. They already know what these meters are doing for our health. And if you value all your health up there and you want to live longer, I suggest you start finding out, because we all own our own property. We have a right to say what can be put on it or not. And by the way, when these meters get put on, guess who's responsible for you? You are. If anything goes wrong, you're going to have to pay out of your pocket to fix things. So we don't have like legislation or certification that these meters are going to be safe for us. We just have some. And guess what? This is how fast they're moving on this, so you don't have much time. Because why? I'm going to read this, because this is the goal that's set. They already got the money in place, so money is not the problem. The problem is the time that we have to figure out if this should go into effect. And if our lives are more important than our technology might ruin us and might add to our shorter lifespan, well, then so be it, if that's what you feel that's necessary. But this is a bigger issue. This is an emergency, and I want you to look at this. All this other stuff is tied into our cell phones, to the wireless computers to help the fires, the people that have to come out and log everything. You're going to lose all your data up there on your computers. So think about this. And I'm going to read this because the DT plan to install the electrical smart meters in 2011, and then the gas ones in 2012. And then we're not going to get out of it because the government wants gas, water, and the electrical smart meters installed on every home and businesses in the country. Okay? So this is also happening in Sweden, in Russia. So it's global. It's not just going to be, oh, our little township here. This is something you have to think about. So if you value your lives, like everybody else here, then we have to start taking more responsibility and start learning what this really, really means to our health.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Karen Spranger.
Karen Spranger, 7520 Hudson, Warren. There's so much to tell and there's not enough time, but I do have a packet of information I want to submit to you guys to review and to search in your hearts what is necessary, what is truthful, and what will be kind to our environment and protect our safety first and our health, because there's no price that you can pay me ever for my health to get better from from all these contraptions and things that we are building to pollute this environment. I'm going to read some things that are taken from sources that's going to say you're going to have problems with the accuracy in billing, meters overcharging. You'll have health environment concerns, nausea, possible cancer, insomnia, whatever. They're documenting this. electromagnet interference, all the devices that we use every day in our lives. Installing them are going to create a burden for us, and I just want you to think twice about who has to pay out of the pocket. Usually us first. The grant money is already going to be spent, no matter how we try to dictate what it does for us. Fire and explosions are being reported, not just here because we don't have them installed yet. I don't have one on my home, and I am learning how to say no by doing some things that we can do just as a citizen for my constitutional rights under the amendments. The mandate, here's the mandate. Listen to it very carefully. The federal government, through the Obama stimulation package, has supported the rollout of this new technology. The California Public Utility Commission has authorized the PG&E and SCE and the SDG&E to install new meters as a part of the smart grid energy conversation idea. And other parts of the country, like the state of Connecticut, officially has required to go slow. Approach to testing first. However, no agency has mandated that these meters be wireless, thus opening the conversation to why not hand wire shield cables. This has few to none of the vulnerabilities raised above and would likely result in much higher consumer acceptance and buy-in. And this is done by the Sage Association, and I'll be glad to give you a copy to review this for your own purpose. My next issue to the people in Warren, what you do first. You have to write a concern letter to DT Energy, the utility company, requesting you're concerned about these meters and the safety, and anything else you think might be important. You can also find out information on the internet and go to the EM Safety Network and also the Hughes Smart Meter internet site. You post a sign on your electricity, gas, and water meter that says, "Do not install smart meters." To show you what they look like, take it out of the package. I have one on my hat. I laminated mine, and I'll be happy to help anybody that can't afford it. I would donate this little object to them to put on their meter, so there's no excuse if they want to exercise that right. Educate your community with information. You also have a right to educate us. If you're for it, show me the proof, the safety, the well-beingness for me to live in this community. I might have to move to another community that might be safer.
Ma'am, your 3 minutes has run. Can you please conclude your comments?
My conclusion comments would be, I will submit for record information that you should read, considered desperately, because this is an emergency, and take it on the agenda for next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is John Holton. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm John Holton, 2392 Barclay Avenue, Shelby Township. Many people ask me what my hat stands for. It stands for Warriors for American Revolution. We started this long before the end of the Fed stuff came along. We started because of our representatives won't represent us and they won't protect us. We went after Mike Cox, Mike Bishop, Mike Bouchard, and to our good luck, we got them not elected. And I'm standing here before you because we are approaching Shelby Township tomorrow with trying to get this here smart meters, stopping smart meters on the agenda, because it is so important and urgent that residents of the state of Michigan, all through the country, stand up to the corporate infringement on our constitutional rights to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. It is the invasion into our houses where these smart meters are going to go. They're going to cipher information, personal and financial, and there is no safe avenue to protect yourself from this invasion. The meters go ahead not only may cause cancer, autism, DNA damage to infants, but they also go ahead and bring on many things as far as heart palpitations. It depends on the exposure. This is a new science. FCC's limits on it have not been fully diagnosed. The World Health Organization has data on it, but it's not substantiated due to low frequencies. There's an agency, business out in California called Sage Associates. They did a real good study on it. They documented all the standards that the FCC puts on out show that these limits are not adequate to protect your children, your family, your friends, and your neighbors. These smart meters will radiate not only from one pole to another, but they will combine signals, maybe even constantly throughout the day, emitting different radio frequencies that may actually infringe upon your mental capacity to think and reason. This is something you should take seriously. All that information I passed out to you, okay, is spread throughout the world. It's not just us, some Mickey Mouse people scamming the internet. It comes from legitimate sources. It is something to be respected and then looked at in you. I come here not for just me, because it's not my job to go ahead and do the work for everybody. It is the job of every citizen in Warren and Shelby and Michigan to start standing up and asking these questions and holding you guys accountable for allowing these smart meters and these other intrusions in our constitutional rights. You guys are not protecting us. You're not serving us as you're supposed to be. You take an oath maybe to support the Constitution, but it's not to protect the Constitution, okay? This is a difference. Many of you just sit here and you go about your daily business, but the citizens look to you for guidance. They think you're going to do the right thing by them. And it's time the citizens start really looking forward to what's happening with our economy. Why are we in debt to the Federal Reserve? Why are we borrowing money we don't have? Why are we spending federal money like it's free, coming out of, a free bucket, just go grab some more money? Why is that happening? We can't make credit cards out of thin air, but our government can borrow from the Federal Reserve. It's outrageous. You're putting your great-great-grandkids into debt. Our economy can collapse within 2 weeks, and the people and citizens of this country don't know that because nobody is telling them. Our senators and representatives pretend like there's nothing they can do about it. All they got to do is quit spending money they don't have. Live within their budget like you guys expect us to. You're foreclosing on houses in a neighborhood because the mortgages aren't paid because the free money that they got from Federal Reserve from the banking system wasn't paid. Just wasn't paid. It's free money, manufactured from the Federal Reserve. And what are you guys doing about it? Everybody pretends, well, we can't do nothing about that. We got to start living with our budget. We start holding each other accountable. And each citizen has to go ahead and quit pretending that you guys are going to do it for us. Our state reps and senators are going to do it for us. Our U.S. senators and reps are going to do it for us. Because guess what? They're going to keep pretending, okay, they're doing what has to be done, and we're going to go down the drain. Because our citizens are not taking responsibility as citizens. It's up to them to go ahead and hold you accountable. It's up to them to protect our country and our Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Deborah Mullins. No problem.
Good evening, Council. How are you?
Good evening.
My name is Deborah Mullins. I live in Warren, Michigan. As soon as I hold this bag up, we'll do just fine. Okay. I'm here tonight not on a happy note. I'm here in regards to a loss of water in the home. Not for 1 day, not for 2, for 12 consecutive days. Not a drop of water came into the home. Okay? Take a look at me. The proof is in the pudding right here. Okay? I wanted y'all to see me in my glory. Basically, we lost water in the house on February 10th in the evening. On February 11th of 2011, I realized there was no water coming out of the pipes. I called the water company. They came out to investigate it. They thought the pipes were frozen. Okay? So we went by what they suggested. We put heat tape on the pipes. We put a heat lamp on the pipes. So from the 11th to the 16th, that's what we did. On the 16th of February, it was 50 degrees outside. Wonderful day. I called the water company back. You need to come back out. It's 50 degrees. We have no water. There's no possible way. These pipes are frozen. They sent gentlemen back out, and believe me, the city workers from the water company were exceptional. They were really good. I could not say anything. Oh my God, they treated us like human beings, okay? They came out, they checked the pipes, then they thought the valve was broken. For the water intake in the house, the shut-off valve, they thought maybe that was busted. Then they thought maybe it was locked in the lock position, so no flow was coming in. So we're like, okay. Now me and my son are being patient through all of this, you know, because I was raised, you know, you handle things in a cordial manner. And I'm trying very hard right now to handle this in a cordial manner. What happened was after that, they had suggested that we had a plumber come out, okay? Well, we can't afford a plumber. We did have somebody come out to help us, Mr. McDaniel. He did come over and assist us. And from what we found out, the valve was not broken. It was not in the lock position. The pipes were not frozen inside the house, okay? The water company came back out again to do a tracer and realized that there was a blockage, but it wasn't on the property. It was the next street over. The next street over, approximately 300 feet, by a fire hydrant. I think it's by a fire hydrant. And we're like, okay, yay, we got the problem solved. What are we gonna do? Basically, I was told, my son Christopher Mullins was told, Mr. McDaniel was told that we were to wait till the pipes thawed out from the supervisor. I looked at him, I said, we've gone 8 days with no water, not a drop. We need to wait till the pipes thaw. Can I continue?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Motion
to
Motion
suspend
to
rules.
extend the time.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. From what we understand from the second tracing that was done, the piping was only 2 feet underneath the street. Now, I think there's a guideline that's supposed to be, what, 4 feet or lower? It was 2 feet. So I asked, why can't it be dug up? It's only 2 feet. We have no water. We're not surviving in the house. Too shallow of a dig. And it has to come from higher authority. Okay? Still being patient. Okay? And there's no money in the budget. I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. We pay taxes, we pay for services for the people, and this is like an emergency situation here. There's me, there's my son, and there's my grandson. That's 3 years old, that's living in that house. And no water, no way to cook meals, no way to go to the bathroom, nothing. I'm like, okay, fine. Let it go at that. Mr. McDaniels was there. And Mr. McDaniels also explained to the supervisor that there was a storm coming. We were on a winter watch. Wait for the pipes to thaw. Now, to me, I think that was very unfair. And his other solution was, oh, borrow water from a neighbor until the pipes thaw. Excuse me? Borrow water from a neighbor. Hook up to their hose. Then you have input water. I'm sorry, but to me, that's just unacceptable. Now, I have pictures I can show you. They can show you where the shutoff meter, the shutoff box outside, when it was found, on the outside of the privacy fence, and how far they would have to go to where the problem was, versus going the opposite direction 100 feet, possibly 100 feet, to the fire hydrant on the front of the property. That would save a lot of money. Instead of going 300 feet, go to 100 feet. And then it took 4 more days for somebody to decide to do anything. This was on Friday. From Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, nothing was done. Today's Tuesday. I got action Tuesday. And I have to say, on behalf of that, I thank 3 council members, Volt, Green, and Comartin, for helping assist in this urgent matter, because we cannot survive much longer without water. And I'm telling you the truth. I've dropped 10 pounds. My son has dropped 12, because we were only drinking 24 ounces of water a day. Your body is 70% water. You need, what, 8 to 10 glasses a day to survive. This is unacceptable. Now, I have pictures you can see later, if you'd like, of the photographs, because the plumbing was replaced in the utility room. It didn't have to be dissected and taken apart, because it was perfectly good. And that was money out of our pocket that we could not afford. So, I just want to make the council aware of it. I want to thank the people that helped us in it. And like I said, the workers were great. That wasn't the issue. The issue was the supervisor and on up, and no action was taken for almost 4 days. That's unacceptable. So I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Okay? You want to see this stuff? I got it, and I got copies.
Our next speaker is Chris Pasternak. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Chris Pasternak. I went to this districting meeting to find out what it was all about. Found it kind of interesting how they went about things, and basically everything was already set before we got there, so it was kind of funny just to go through the motions. While I was there, I made a suggestion that they put a packet together because they wanted citizens to give their input. And so the next day, or Monday following, go to the clerk's office and they have a little flyer there that explains all the rules and regulations that you need for it. Later on, I didn't have time that day, but later on, oh no, that same day I went to property maintenance, I believe, and asked for census numbers for the 2000 census. They're looking all around their office. They can't find the census numbers. Kind of interesting. So later on, I find out that there's this map that's available at the clerk's office now, not at the property division anymore. Have to go to the clerk's office. Get this nice, beautiful map. I need to be careful with it because it cost me $10 to get it. I think it's kind of funny. We want citizens to help out, but now we're going to charge them $10 for a map. On this map, it has the precincts. It also has population by subdivision or neighborhood. But the funniest part is a lot of these numbers dissect through the precincts. So if they want it compact by the precincts, you really can't do it. It's really difficult. And it's going to take days to add up the numbers because some of these blocks have numbers. So it's kind of funny. I just thought it was a nice comic relief. Next thing I want to talk about, City Hall. If you got to use the restroom on the second floor, don't go to the men's room because you need a security key to get in. Kind of interesting. They have a separate stall there that you can get into. That's an individual stall. Nice, fine. But it's kind of funny that the multi-use men's room, you know, that has multiple stalls and urinals and everything, you need a key tab to get in. A little interesting. Thanks for our taxpayer dollars not to allow us to use the facilities at a place we paid for. Next thing about this little senior dance. Great thing. Nice job. But I got a question. If I have a nonprofit organization and I want to run a dance at City Hall, am I going to get it for free? Can I charge a $5 fee? Be interesting to find out. I bet you the answer is no. Next thing I'm going to go on about is snow removal. Came home today after taking my son to school and went by my neighbor. He's 80 years old. I actually helped him plow his sidewalk. And to my discouragement, I saw that there's snow that was plowed from the street that not only went on the curb. Can I have some more time, please?
Motion to suspend the rules.
Motion by Ms. Comartin, support by Mr. Green. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Not only was the snow not only on the curb, but it flew all the way over his sidewalk, past the sidewalk onto his property. So now there's 3 inches of snow that's harder because some of it is melted and it's turned into ice that this 80-year-old man will have to remove. I don't think that's nice. I didn't have time today to go over there and help him dig them out, but it's kind of interesting that it covered the complete sidewalk. And he's on a corner lot, so it's not like it's short 4 or 5 pieces of cement like it is in front of my house. It's quite a distance. It's just ridiculous. And then in front of my house, they don't plow in front of my street where I didn't have a car. There were no cars there. And it doesn't get plowed. So now I can't park in the street with my vehicle, with my second vehicle, because there's nowhere to park. There's snow there. But something interesting that I found is there's a city vehicle that's not marked, and it has a plow in front of it that was paid for. Apparently it said Gus's plow, that was used to plow a certain piece of property that I came to this council meeting and told you guys about. I want to know, did the city get reimbursed for that truck to plow that parking lot that is private property? My second question is, was Gus driving the truck, or was someone else who's not authorized to drive a city vehicle driving the truck? Then my last question. If I were to take a bumper sticker and throw it right up here, would I get in trouble? Because that would be defacing city property, if that's my understanding. That laptop you have is city property. That sticker needs to be removed. Should be fined for that. I don't care what it says, but that is a political statement in my eyes and a lot of citizens' eyes that I have talked to. And you're the only one that has it up there. I see everyone else with laptops, and no one else has a bumper sticker on their thing. You're defacing city property. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Gloria Sanker. Good evening.
Good evening, City Council. In an effort to save money and to save lives, there's a bill. It's called H.R. 5939. It's pending, and it's called No Taxpayer Funding for Abortions. It's introduced by Congressman Chris Smith. It's out of severe frustration over the killing of millions of babies each year that this bill has been brought before Congress. The bill would establish a permanent government-wide ban on abortion funding. In other words, this bill would ensure once and for all that your tax dollars and my tax dollars will not be used for abortions. Most Americans, I believe in the sanctity of life and desire that their money, these millions of dollars, not be used for abortion. Rather, they prefer that their money be used to help veterans, especially disabled, or maybe to find a cure for cancer, or help the poor and the indigent that is so prevalent in our society today. But at this time, we have no say on how our tax money should be used. The government has decided, though, that millions of dollars be given to Planned Parenthood, who is the biggest abortion provider in our country. And under this new government takeover of health care, it would even get worse. But this bill, we will have a say. No tax money for abortion. That frees up a lot of money to be used in other ways. This is life-saving legislation and not an empty executive order as was passed to deceive us when the health care bill was approved. It is simply immoral for pro-life taxpayers to be forced to support this murderous work of the abortion industry, who is in it strictly for money. There are a lot of pro-abortion politicians in Washington and in state government using this dirty money to further their campaigns. This is a crucial bill that must be passed. It would mean no more federal funding for abortions, and we all know that federal funding means people's tax dollars. And to get it right, we must fight to defeat pro-abortion incumbents who are pressing even more taxpayer-funded abortions. They want to use our money to pay for abortions in the United States, Mexico, and in Europe. Passing this bill will end government tyranny that forces us to pay for the killing of the innocent. By taking an ultrasound test, there's no longer a legitimate excuse for not knowing when a baby is a baby. I'll need one more minute, please.
Motion to suspend the rules. Motion by Ms. Comartin.
Support.
Thank you. Finally, there is some political responsibility by some legislators to protect the baby in the womb and to stop the immoral use of our tax dollars. As Americans, we have a right to protect our faith and our freedoms, and in doing so, with this bill, we will help save lives of millions of babies. Pray that it passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Eugene Sawyer.
Members of council, good evening. Citizens of Warren, good evening. I have to remind this administration and some of you people on council that children with special needs had school today. And you know what? I watched a bus on my street pick up and drop off one of the autistic children that live in my street. The streets were in terrible shape. I don't understand why they don't plow. I don't know if Mr. Faust wants to save money that he says we don't have, or what. But anyway, I just want to tell you, praise to these bus drivers. They really deserve your kudos. I just want to make a couple announcements here. The next meeting of the Downtown Development Authority is on Wednesday, the Downtown Development Authority is on Wednesday, March the 2nd at 3 p.m. on the first floor of the conference room at the City Hall. And also, there's a meeting of the Building Authority on March the 1st at 4 p.m. at the Community Conference Center here in Room A. Now, the reason I'm making this announcement is because nobody wants to make these announcements. They want to keep the public ignorant of what's going on in our city. These are the two most important authorities that we have in our city because they control all of our tax dollars, which, by the way, you don't. I know that for a fact because at the last meeting of the Building Authority, I got the unapproved minutes. I won't comment on what was said too much, except that you have no authority over them. They can spend their money any which way they can because that's the opinion of one of the city attorneys. Don't say that I'm wrong because Mr. Krzysztofczyk, who was at that meeting, I asked him, did he hear what I heard? He said yes. So perhaps I was in error in judging you people about not having any oversight. Well, it doesn't matter because you don't anyway. So be what it may, you people have nothing to do with the building authority. You don't even want to manage them in any which way. And I'm almost done. I just have one more thing I want to say. As you know, I keep FOIAing to the city about things that I want answers to. Sometimes they respond and sometimes they don't. They did in this instance when I asked them about the per diem checks. They responded quite quickly. Then when I asked for the building account a copy of the building authority for the 205 equipment account, I didn't get it, but I got it through another source. What I did not get was the one that I requested on the 28th of January about professional services for some of our former people. These are for professional services. I gave them the check numbers, the dates, and everything. They did not respond. Why, I don't know. The request was put in. I have it here. I have a copy of it. They did not respond to a citizen's request for some information. So they, in my eyes, they have violated the Freedom of Information Act. I think that's disgusting. Here I am for the last year going there. Every time I want some information, I go there and I ask them for information. No, you got to put a FOIA in. Needless to say, I was discouraged many times, but in this instance, I was not discouraged. I pursued this. And here I have the proof right in my hands. January the 28th, signed by Mary Michael, that she was going to get me the information. I did not even receive any correspondence from the attorney's office. That's what I think about some of you people.
Our next speaker is Henry Krzysztofczyk. Good evening.
Good evening. Madam President, distinguished members of council, city attorney. Henry Krzysztofczyk, longtime resident of the city of Warren. The regular agenda item 14, public hearing to receive comments on the proposed 2011 CDBG budget to establish and fund recreation facilities improvement. It was a public hearing. How many attended? 0. How much money we're talking about? It's not there. Now here we're going to take block grant money that's used to take care of our older sections of the city. Help this poor old woman out. It's a widow woman on a pension, got busted windows, house leaks, insulated improperly, hasn't had enough money for medication. Yeah, we're going to take that money away, give it to Parks and Rec. This is what Kyle Atkins McDaniels did. Stripped off some windows off an old house that's being torn down and helped these people out. Now, how could you people in good conscience even consider putting this on the agenda when this activity has what? $3-4 million fund surplus? What are they saving it for? What is the money intended for? Not for Parks and Rec. Let them get that fund balance down to 0. And let them start pulling out their hair until blood starts coming under their fingernails. Then you say, yeah, you deserve some money. You have another one, NSP program. What are we going to use that for? The two programs are used to help out neighborhoods. And yet somebody is not handling the procedures properly. I don't know if it's the responsibility of the legislative body or the department that takes care of this. Every time I challenge them, they tell me, well, this is not what it's intended for. It's got to be in a certain area and everything else. But it should be based on need. I don't hear anybody writing a letter to the 211s and say, hey, look, we got a problem here. We need the money, but the way it's being spent, we're not getting the big bang for our dollars. When you have to pay $135,000 to build a house, that's not counting the property, and only can't sell it for $50,000 or $55,000, something is wrong. Why don't we set up a program, a commission? Do we have a commission that's running this particular activity? We got a commission for everything else in the city, except where we really need it, in the older sections of the city. You could easily select 5 members or 6 members or 7 members from our city and let them run a commission like the planning commission has. Let them give them some guidelines, bylaws, and let them tell them how to spend the money.
Please
All these
conclude.
years, excuse me,
I'm sorry, I need you to conclude. The 3 minutes is run.
I will.
Motion to suspend rules.
Motion by Ms. Comartin. Support by Mr. Warner.
The
All in
money-
favor?
Aye.
Apologize for the interruption. Go ahead.
I think the money is there. It's been there for 10, 15 years. What have we accomplished with those millions of dollars? Because there's no accountability. There's no direction. You have a handful of people doing what they think is right. It's not getting there. Let's start preserving what we have now. But to take this money and give it to the Parks and Rec, for what? Don't we have a millage paid for that activity? And they want more money? What this tells me, they got the funds, they have to spend it, and they don't know what to do with it. Please, council people, you're our representatives. Start putting the pressure on these people. I'm asking you to start putting the pressure on them and getting involved in this. Nobody gives a darn. If we have to change the rules. Well, incidentally, I think Don had mentioned something earlier in the meeting that the black grant money might be black grant program may be eliminated by the federal government. That's what I understand too. They're going to cut that out of the budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next agenda item?
Our next agenda item is number 19, council calendar of pending matters.
I'm sorry, ma'am?
Point of information, Robert's Rules of Order, point of information. I'm making a complaint. You guys were supposed to make a motion in time for him to extend the time. The courtesy should be to all of us equally. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sadowski, item number 19.
Council calendar of pending matters.
Mr.
Madam Chair.
Bliss?
Yeah, Madam Chair, the reason I brought this up is I would like to ask the City Attorney's Office to review the calendar of pending matters and update the council on the matters that are pending, except for the one that was sent to the City Attorney's Office on 12/14/2010. That's only been a couple of months, but there are matters here that have been pending for quite some time, and I'm going to move a motion. I'm going to make the following motion to ask the City Attorney's Office to update the council on the cost recovery ordinance, the public notices on internet request, the the vehicle list and resolution, and I think I'm missing one. Oh, record
Yeah.
retention policy.
Record.
And that's my motion.
Support.
Motion by Mr. List, support by Ms. Vogt. Any other discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Mr. Sadowski?
Mr. List, the item that we received in our packet was related to TIFA. That was the one
that's-
on 126.
Yeah, that's not in my motion.
I know, but when we spoke back, I couldn't remember which one it was.
Yeah, thank you, and I was looking at two different calendar matters.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good.
All right, with that, I'll call a question. Mr. List?
Yes.
Ms. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Comartin?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Camp, yes. The motion passed unanimously.
Next agenda item is 20A. Councilman Steve Warner, update on committee to explore the possibilities to purchase redistricting software.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last meeting, I was nominated by Mr. Stevens to serve on the committee to discuss the possibility of purchasing redistricting software. The committee met today. The committee consisted of myself, our city assessor, Marcia Smith, Ron Worth, our planning director, Ken Bouchard from the planning department, Paul Voino, the city clerk, Jim Hartley, our city staff coordinator, Rob Malisic, our city controller, Keith Williams from IT, Ron Papandrea from the attorney's office, Todd Shadek from engineering, and Craig Treppa from purchasing. It had come to my attention once we got to this meeting that the city already has software available that it had purchased roughly 10 years ago for the specific reason of assisting with the planning department. And Mr. Bouchard from the planning department gave a demonstration of this software, and there was a few scenarios that were presented by myself and Mr. Voino as to roughly how this would work. I'd like to invite Mr. Hartley up to the microphone to give an overview of it.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Now, Mr. Hartley, the name of this software is ESRI.
Yeah, ESRI, which is, I believe, the name of the platform or the company that is the basis, and it's ArcGIS is the product.
And GIS, meaning Geographic Information Systems.
Yes.
And the information comes directly from Macomb County and from the U.S. Census Bureau?
Yeah, the county has data sets that are specific to the county. They also had United States Census data, but I believe that we learned in the meeting today that the planning department actually contacted, for the purposes of this project, got a data set directly from the United States Census Bureau so that it's as accurate as it can be directly from the governmental entity that creates those block groups. And I believe that the data is specific right down to blocks. There's 1,800 some odd block groups in the city. And that's the level of detail that the data set goes.
Now, this particular software, it threw me for a loop because we've been discussing the possibility of purchasing software, and Mr. Liss has even brought up a specific type of software. How does this differ from what was mentioned by him?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with the product that he was looking at. I believe the purchasing department did a cursory examination of the product that Mr. Liss brought up. It's called Political Maptitude, and it's specific for political campaigns, and obviously cities use it in different things, as Mr. Liss has illustrated. For the purpose of this endeavor, all that's necessary are the data sets relating to population as provided by the United States Census year 2000 numbers.
In creating these wards, we are specifically instructed by the ballot language to go by population only?
I believe that's what all districting or redistricting is all based on population.
Now, what about crossing district lines or precinct lines?
Well, it's my understanding that the commission stated that in its guidelines that the basic legal requirements, which again are only United States Census population figures, are necessary. And on top of that, there was a request made by the city clerk, Mr. Voino, to adhere to precinct boundaries as much as possible, just so that the city won't be incurring additional costs by changing those boundaries. It is not a legal requirement, however, that I'm aware of. It was just something that was put in the parameters as a preference.
Now, we have a maintenance cost on this software, which is roughly $2,000 a year. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
And we also have only one license available to use this. No, bless you. Now, what is the importance of having more than one license? And explain why that'd be pertinent.
Well, I believe that the product that was being considered by Mr. Liss would have been a standalone product, and there's many of them out there where you load it on a particular machine and you have one license, and if you were to need to, you can use that license
one at a time on that machine, and if you wanted to use it on another machine, you would uninstall it and then reload it someplace else. The way the citywide system, it's an enterprise system, which means that the core of it, or the mother data, resides in the city's server, and the data sets do as well. And then you install client applications on any city computer, and that would, by the way, include city council. If you wanted to have a client installed at the city council office so that any one of you can also sit down and use it, that is available to you. It's already bought and paid for. The issue that you just brought up, though, is the issue of concurrent licenses. So, yes, the issue is we only own one license, which would mean that if anybody anywhere in the city were using the system, then another person can't use it at that time. But the benefit to an enterprise system is that it's already loaded, and you just have to sit down and use it at that point. So if there's a request made for council to have a client installed so that it's more convenient for members of council, because you do have a council office, Keith Williams has made it clear that he'd be happy to accommodate that. The issue is how many people can use it at one time, and if our planning department is using it at a certain time, then there can be a conflict there. But it is available for anybody to use.
Now, after the presentation, Mr. Bouchard ran through a couple of scenarios and explained how it was used in the past, and it had dawned on me, the previous assessor, Mr. Maston, I had visited him in his office one time, and he had shown me this, but I had not yet comprehended what it was. But he said that they were working with this with the engineering department, with the assessors department, and with the planning department. And then the next time I went to schedule a meeting with him to go over the software at length, he retired. But is this going to be something that we're going to be using on a wider basis in the future?
Well, I would hope so. It's kind of like a expensive sports car that you buy and you park it in the garage because nobody really knows how to drive it. Well, we now have a guy that will be able to drive it more often. That's Mr. Bouchard. He's new in the planning department. He's specifically trained in use of GIS, the GIS platform. So when he came to the city, we already owned the platform. All he did was sit in the driver's seat and use it. So it's not like we had to buy a new car. He already used the one that we already have, which I think is the issue, was the request that was made by council members to determine if we indeed have a piece of equipment that's already in place that we can use. The answer to that appears to be yes by everyone who's experienced the presentation, and anyone else who would like to get an understanding similar to what you got and what I think Mr. Bueno got and some of the other department heads, that we do indeed have this platform in place.
Okay, thank you. I'll open up to further comments from colleagues.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Bacamino?
Yes, I remember Mr. Warner was saying when we were first elected, Mr. Maston, I think, took us through at least I know several council members, I'm not sure if all of us got a chance to check this out. At the time, he was using it for, I think, assessing values and things like that, but now that you mention that, I do recall that as well, so it's nice to see we already have something that can, appears, do what we need to do and save us some money.
Any other comments from council members?
Madam Chair.
Mr. List.
First of all, I'd like to thank Councilman Warner for taking this task on and getting some answers here. Obviously, I'm gratified that after 4 months, the administration has finally come up and told us they have something available. For that, I'm grateful. The name of the program is not Political Maptitude. It's called Maptitude. Hundreds of cities and state legislatures across the country use it. Precinct boundaries are important, and although population is the sole criteria to draft districts, other criteria are also important. United States Supreme Court rulings on the one man, one vote state that cutting through precincts is not generally an acceptable way of cutting boundary lines, and that counts against the entity that's cutting them. One thing that I have to thank Mr. Pasternak for letting me borrow this map, and I know it's going to be impossible to see on TV, but it's a nice map, but it's not very useful. And by the way, you think $10 is bad? I had to go to Kinko's print my own map. It was $72.50, $7 a square foot, because I printed it from the census map directly. One of the problems with this map is that some of the precincts go through the blocks, and the block has a designation on it. Let's say it has 363 residents living there. But the precinct map doesn't say how many are living on this side of the block and how many are living on that side of the block. So it's a concern. I'm hoping that the ArcGIS does it, but from my understanding it may not. But I know that this map will not assist any general resident in drafting the ward map. With that, I yield, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. List. Any other comments from council members?
Just one.
Rackamino?
Maybe to Mr. List through the chair. Does the Maptitude one solve that problem? Does the Maptitude program that you wanted to buy solve that problem too? I'd like to know if we're going to move ahead. Is this on?
Oh, would you like me to answer?
Somebody would like to answer. I mean, obviously, if
I'd
there's
be
a
happy
weakness,
to-
if there's a weakness, I'd like to know because.
Well, I'd be happy to address the system that I spoke on and the system that the city has. Perhaps Mr. List could add the things that this Maptitude program does that perhaps the city's program doesn't do. First of all, the administration has made it clear for quite some time, and I've specifically told this body that there was a system in place. Mr. List, I don't believe that you ever asked anyone if there was indeed something in place. And yes, now there's been a presentation to a member of council, and you're all welcome to get that same presentation. So from the perspective of the administration not providing something, it's already been there and it's already been in place. Secondly, the map that Mr. List held up is indeed the map that was generated by the ArcGIS system. And if you could see it and look closer, you could see that there are numbers that denote how many people live in every single particular block group. And what's going to happen with the maps, whatever maps that are received by the public, they'll be taken and put on that same platform with the boundaries that are designated, drawn on that same system. The numbers will then be able to be generated as to specifically to the person how many people, according to the census, live in those blocks designated. So Mr. Liss is incorrect when he states that this map doesn't do what we need it to do, because it does exactly what's needed to be done.
Well, if you would like Mr. Hartley, I'll show you a place on the map, and you can perhaps tell me on which side of that boundary line how many people live.
Okay, I'd be happy to do that.
Right now.
How would you like to do it?
Right after the meeting.
Madam Chair.
If Mr. Hartley is willing to take a look at the situation.
This precinct that cuts right here. This precinct cuts right through there for their population.
Okay, again, what you have with this map, and I'd be happy to put it on the overhead, the only legal requirement, Mr. Liss, and you should know this.
Well, yes, I should know this because I'm
Excuse
an
me,
attorney.
Mr. Bacamino had the floor and he asked Mr. Hartley to answer a question.
Census block data, population data is the only legal requirement to this endeavor. What was added was the extra element of, could you please adhere to precincts? The precincts are not required by law, but they are denoted in the map so that a person who was creating a map could try
Just
to
don't
adhere
quit,
to
do
that.
you?
What was that?
Mr. Hartley, please, you
Okay.
can answer Mr.
Anyway,
Bacamino's question.
Anyone who would like to see a paper map version of this, They're available in the clerk's office. You can look at them, and you don't have to buy them, but for the cost of the material, it's $10. Obviously, that's pretty reasonable if Mr. List spent $75 to print.
Madam Chair, I believe I still have the floor. I've been interrupted 3 times by Mr. List.
You're right.
Point of order.
Okay, I won't
Again,
interrupt
we have
anymore.
one simple legal requirement, and that is United States Census block data, and it's all here. You couldn't get more accurate than the map that you have before you. If you'd like to take a calculator out and add up every one of these census blocks, you will come to 138,247, I believe, is the 2000 census for the city of Warren. So there is no inaccuracies here, and you can actually put whatever maps people come up with can be put onto this platform. The evidence will be made public, and it doesn't get any better than that.
Madam Chair, my original question was addressed to anybody, and I still haven't got the answer. If the software Mr. List wants to purchase for $3,500...
No. I never said I wanted to purchase it. I wanted the city council to take a look at it, Mr. Bacamino.
Madam Chair,
Get it
again, I'm
straight,
being
Mr.
interrupted for
Bacamino.
the 4th time. Point of order.
Bacamino has the floor.
I do have the floor. Apparently, you know, that doesn't apply to certain council members, but it does here. We're a society of order and rules, Mr. List. I have asked, does anyone know if Maptitude can do what Mr. Hartley just described? If not, I see no further point in pursuing your suggestion, and that's a civilized way to say that.
Mr. Bacamino, may I have the floor, Madam Chair?
I have not yielded yet.
You
Because
hit
I'm not
the
done.
microphone button.
I shut it off because I
Because
want to
what?
take a break here.
Okay.
Mr. Hartley is still answering questions for me.
Well, Mr. Hartley
You
doesn't
know,
have the
Mr.
floor except
Hartley.
through you.
That's correct.
Excuse me, one second.
I'm just trying to finish my question,
I
Mr. Hartley.
understand that, and maybe I think we'll be a lot further if we don't want other people to interrupt and not mention them by name. Mr. Bacamino, please conclude your comments, then Mr. List will have the floor.
I agree. Mr. Hartley, do you know if Maptitude can do what you described? Do you know anything about this program that...
Just from a cursory examination of it, it will do United States Census block just as well as this one will. And I would imagine it's got all kinds of other data sets. It'll tell you where the Democrats and the Republicans are, all the things that one would use for a political campaign. None of those things are necessary to this process. So we already own a system that does what we need it to do. It'll also give us any other United States Census demographics, where different racial categories live, income distributions, household distributions. All the things that you get in the United States Census are already available to us. The extra things that are involved in this Maptitude, you know, if Mr. List has an item that he would like on top of this that would be requested, then certainly we can look at that, but it isn't necessary to this endeavor. So there's no reason to incur additional cost unless someone wants to buy an additional license so that we have more concurrent users, and that would be something that council is welcome to do on the system, the platform that we already have.
Does the system you described that the city already has, does that give detailed data on partisan voters?
No, no, I don't believe so.
Do we need that detailed data to do this process?
No.
I yield.
Madam Chair.
Madam.
Mr. List had asked for the floor, then Ms. Vogt.
Well, Mr. List has had a couple of terms.
I yield.
Would you mind, Mr. List?
No.
Thank you.
Ms. Vogt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We don't have a motion on the floor. There was nothing brought up about were we going to look at this program versus that program. It was just supposed to be Mr. Warner giving us a little update on what the committee has been done. So as much as we don't have a motion, we're not purchasing anything, all we're doing is a little bit of bashing back and forth. I make a motion that we adjourn.
Support.
Motion to adjourn by Ms. Vogt, support by Mr. List. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The meeting has adjourned at 12:19 a.m.
Here's the question. Okay, but the question is